Chapter 1207. After settling everything, Yi Qinghan brought away the paramount gods from the various holy lands, as well as a group of extremely powerful Titan gods. It was a pity that all the paramount gods from the past had perished, and he had no choice but to bring away the current inheritors. Shaman emperors were also brought away, and they followed Yi Qinghan through the Wangu Yuntian. After plundering a large number of divine medicines, they arrived at the entrance to the Wangu Yuntian. Yi Qinghan led the way into the Great Desolation Realm, and found that there were no people from the Seven Worlds. On the other hand, the start-winding vine was growing stronger and stronger. It was currently coiling around the Great Desolation Palace, covering an area of 1,000 miles. There were nearly 100 million vines, and they were like snakes. The Great Desolation Palace was lush and verdant, which attracted a large number of living creatures. The start-winding vine had entered a frenzied stage of devouring. In just half a year, it had surrounded the Great Desolation Palace. If it was given more time, it might be able to devour more than half of the Great Desolation Realm, or even a smaller world. Yi Qinghan calmly looked at the start-winding vine around the Great Desolation Palace, but didn't stop it from evolving. In the future, it might even be able to help him delay a realm lord. With the start-winding vine here, anyone who wanted to enter or leave the Wangu Yuntian would be monitored, which reduced Yi Qinghan's energy. With nothing to worry about, Yi Qinghan brought everyone into the Great Desolation Realm. "Let's go deeper," Yi Qinghan said. "I'll provide you with the secret arts of the Great Desolation Realm, enough for you to cultivate to the great circle of paramount gods. As for whether you can break through the limit, that will depend on your luck." Everyone was excited, especially the paramount gods. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for them to take a step forward. Now that they had the secret arts and the guidance of an expert, they were naturally excited. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to be generous. He still needed to rely on these people to turn the tables, so the secret arts were nothing to him. The group of people hurried along. The desolate divine force surged, difficult to understand. The profound laws were already broken, and the heavenly Tao here had also been destroyed. Cultivating to the peak state was extremely difficult, requiring many years of accumulation and fumbling. However, Yi Qinghan was not worried that the heavenly Tao would stop him from nurturing geniuses. In the past, he had been unable to move the Great Wasteland's monument and absorb humans into it. But now that he had recovered his World Lord soul, he could move everything within the world monolith. It was normal for the Great Wasteland's steel to be said to be a complete world. This was created by Yi Qinghan during his peak. The inside of the Great Wasteland's steel was vast and boundless. Although there were a few desolate god medicines, the profound Tao inside was complete. Furthermore, it was identical to the Great Wasteland's domain. Yi Qinghan brought everyone through the sea and rushed towards the other shore. They appeared in an even more lush territory. The city had collapsed and was in ruins. One could imagine how bitter the war back then had been. However, as soon as they crossed the sea, Yi Qinghan and Huang Peng's expressions changed. They looked at each other, clearly excited. "There are desolate dwellers. There are still desolate dwellers in the Great Wastelands," Yi Qinghan said excitedly. "I feel it too." Huang Peng's cold expression finally revealed a crazed smile. He and Yi Qinghan rushed into the distance as fast as lightning, leaving the people behind them far behind. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know whether to chase after them or not. Emperor Yi pondered for a moment and decided not to chase after them. Now that desolate dwellers had appeared, both sides would definitely be very excited. They would also have a lot of feelings to talk about. It was better to let them be alone. "Let's look for desolate god medicines first. When Master is done, he will definitely come back to find us," Emperor Yi suggested. When everyone heard this, they immediately spread out. They began to pick desolate god medicines whenever they saw one. There were desolate god medicines everywhere. There were desolate god medicines everywhere. Roar! The wild beasts in the great wastelands flew and swooped down from the void. However, they quickly turned around and rushed into the void instead of attacking these experts. There was no lack of giant god realm wild beasts. At this moment they were actually very docile. Instead, they took the initiative to lead Emperor Yi and the others to look for desolate god medicines. Yi Qinghan and Huang Ping swooped down from the sky and looked at a small tribe in front of them. They were so excited that their bodies trembled. In the vast great wastelands, apart from the beasts, the human race had all been wiped out. They thought that only the two of them were left in the great wastelands. They didn't expect desolate dwellers to exist. Whoosh! The two landed on the outskirts of the tribe and saw a group of more than 30 children running around and cultivating. However, their cultivation was very low. They didn't even surpass the Emperor realm. A few burly men looked at the children outside the tribe. Their faces were full of smiles, but their eyes were full of vicissitudes and sadness. Their wrinkles were like tree bark. It was obvious that they had lived a very difficult life. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan appeared in front of them. As the Emperor of the Great Wastelands, the Realm Master, how could he not feel that they were pure desolate dwellers? Yi Qinghan was rarely excited, but at this moment, tears of joy appeared on his handsome face. He bent down and looked at a 5- or 6-year-old child in front of him. He reached out to hug him. The child didn't seem to dislike Yi Qinghan. Instead, he felt very close to Yi Qinghan. He took the initiative to hug Yi Qinghan. Soon, more than 30 children surrounded them. Yi Qinghan and Huang Peng's appearance alarmed a few burly men squatting by the tribe's walls. They looked at Yi Qinghan and Huang Peng in shock. It was as if they knew Yi Qinghan from birth. "It's our emperor! Our emperor has returned!" The burly man's face was full of tears. He looked up to the sky and roared. The entire tribe was shocked. No matter how Yi Qinghan changed his appearance, his soul was completely compatible with the Great Wastelands. As long as it was a creature of the Great Wastelands, they would recognize him. "It's our emperor!" Although the children didn't understand what this meant, they were very excited. It was as if they hadn't seen their parents for a long time. They all rushed over. Boom! The burly men all rushed over and knelt in front of Yi Qinghan and Huang Peng, tears streaming down their faces. They were as helpless as children. "Woo-woo! Our emperor! Welcome back, our emperor!" Swish, swish, swish. More than 10 figures rushed out of the small tribe. They were all experts with decent cultivations. One of them was even stronger. He was actually a giant god, not far from the paramount god level. Moreover, he looked very young. "The survivors of the Great Wastelands welcome back, our emperor." The young expert was the first to kneel. He was extremely respectful. "The survivors of the Great Wastelands welcome back, our emperor." The young and old of the small tribe rushed out and cried. Their stubborn belief and faith had supported them to continue their legacy. After so many years, they had developed into a tribe of nearly 1,000 people. Yi Qinghan knelt on the ground and hugged the children. He was speechless for a long time, tears flowing from his eyes. Huang Peng had shed a lot of blood, but he rarely shed tears. Back when the Great Wastelands domain was destroyed, he had cried once. Now, he was hugging the children and crying like a child. "I'm back. The people of the Great Wastelands will rise again." Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse, but it was firm and persistent. People couldn't help but believe. Chapter 1208. I'm back. The people of the great wilderness will rise again. This sentence could be considered as a promise, as an explanation to these survivors. How many people would there be in an entire world, even in the smallest chaos world? And how many people would there be in the largest great wilderness world? Innumerable. It was a pity that there were only a few people left, less than 1,000 people. Any small village in a world had more people than here. These few people lived under a broken city wall, with 2 towering mountains behind them, not daring to leave this continent. Are you the only ones left? Are there any other tribes? Yi Qinghan asked with a hoarse voice. Although he couldn't sense them, his divine sense could only cover a distance of 1,000,000 li. The great wilderness world was boundless, there was always hope. The leading young giant god expert got down on one knee and respectfully replied, "Your Majesty, this commoner is Qian Poxy. Over the years, I have searched some places in the great wasteland domain and did not find any survivors of the second tribe. However, I believe that we are not the only ones who have survived. I believe that there must be someone hiding in some corner of the great wasteland. Get up, there's no need to call me my emperor. The great wilderness dynasty has already been destroyed. I've let down your ancestors. I didn't protect the people of the great wilderness. I've let down the great wilderness world lord. I can't bear the title of my emperor." Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and looked at the group of people kneeling in front of him. "Boss, this isn't your fault. If you didn't heavily injure the 7 realm lords and dye the sky red with blood, how would we have any survivors? I'm afraid that even desolate beasts with low intelligence would have been killed." Huang Ping choked with sobs, his face filled with guilt. As the chief imperial guard, not only had he failed to protect the sovereign, he had even allowed the sovereign to escort him out of the great desolate realm. How could he not protect such a world overlord with his life? "Yes, my emperor, our ancestors warned us not to forget my emperor, and to wait for my emperor's return. We're not waiting for your guilt, we're waiting for you to lead us to revenge." Qian Pushi knelt on the ground with his head on the ground, unwilling to get up. Yi Qinghan hugged the young child in his arms tightly, the icy flames in his eyes piercing through the void. "I'll lead you to revenge. In this life, you'll see it." The hoarse voice echoed in the air, stirring the clouds that hadn't moved for thousands of years. The desolate thick clouds rolling vast and mighty, as if the sun was about to be dispelled. "Everyone, get up! Enter the great wastelands, steal and bitterly cultivate. I need your help." Yi Qinghan stood up with the child in his arms and said in a deep voice. Qian Poxy suddenly raised his head. His face was filled with excitement. In this broken great wasteland world, he was able to cultivate to the limit of a giant god, almost reaching the level of a supreme god. If he entered the great wasteland steel, that alternate dimension that contained the complete mysteries of all arts, he was confident that he could become a chief imperial guard like Huang Peng. "King. Qian Emperor, of course. Qian." After that, Huang Peng turned back and went to find the experts from the primal chaos world. Yi Qinghan released his aura, and his soul covered half the continent. His feet tapped on the ground, and his will spread out millions of miles. Myriad beasts greet Emperor, everyone rejoices. Roar! Roar! A large number of beasts flew to the mountain peak at the same time, roaring into the sky. Their aura was intense, and they collided with the clouds. Everything was passed down one by one, and all the beasts headed to the sea together. The birds rode on the clouds, and the powerful desolate beasts walked on the waves, plucking the desolate god herbs and fruit. They welcomed the emperor of the great wilderness world with the most beautiful fruits and divine herbs. Dong! Dong! All the beasts galloped together. That was a spectacular sight. Dust flew everywhere, and the earth shook. The desolate beasts that were not stopped by the sea, regardless of whether they were strong or weak, all rushed to the small mountain village like a beast tide. The beasts did not trample or kill. They only came to worship the great wilderness world lord, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Many of the desolate beasts were intelligent, and some of the divine beasts were not inferior to humans. They also respected the emperor of the great wilderness. No matter how long the inheritance had been passed down, as long as Yi Qinghan returned, he would be the emperor. No blasphemy was allowed. No matter how far away they were, they had to rush over and worship him. Soon, some of the strongest desolate beasts brought a large number of desolate god herbs to the small village. They stopped when they were 1 mile away, waiting for Yi Qinghan to summon them. More and more desolate beasts appeared, and they filled the entire continent. Roar! The heaven-taming divine beast turned into a bolt of lightning and appeared outside the village from the other side of the sea. It rushed in and rolled around Yi Qinghan happily. The powerful desolate god beasts began to transform into human forms. There were also some who transformed into half-beast, half-human forms. Due to their limited strength or bloodline, it was very difficult for them to fully transform into human forms. Yi Qinghan led a group of children out of the village. When he saw the reverence and excitement on the faces of the beasts, he could not help but feel agitated. The experts of the primal chaos realm appeared outside the village under the lead of Desolate Peng. When they saw the birds and desolate beasts looking at Yi Qinghan with such reverence, they were also excited. Only Yi Qinghan could make so many desolate beasts act so respectfully. "Greetings, Emperor!" Roar! Screech! The beasts roared in unison, and the humanoid creatures spoke in the human language. Their voices were uniform, and their auras soared to the stars. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and bowed. "Thank you for coming. Qinghan is ashamed." Roar! The heaven-controlling divine beast roared, as if it was dissatisfied with Yi Qinghan's shame. "It should be them who should be ashamed. Back then, your ancestors followed me to resist the 7 realms, but they were all wiped out. Not a single one managed to escape from the battlefield, and not a single one survived. I am ashamed that I rushed out from the depths of hell and went through 9 reincarnations to reach this point. Here, I make a great vow that in this life, I will take you with me to avenge your ancestors. I will not allow you to be slaughtered by the 7 realms again. If I cannot do this, I will never have the chance to reincarnate a 10th time. Everyone, please tell each other that if you are willing to die on the battlefield, please make a great vow in your ancestral land. I will sense it and see you on the battlefield in the future." Yi Qinghan roared, and his aura surged into the distance. Roar! The beasts roared, giving Yi Qinghan the most resolute response. In the past few years, the Great Wasteland Realm had become a training ground for the 7 realms. Countless desolate beasts had died, and countless paramount god-level desolate beasts had died in order to resist. Generation after generation, they had long wanted to resist. 100,000 years. That will be the day I counterattack. Yi Qinghan's low and hoarse voice resounded once more, and his eyes were filled with the determination to die. Roar! Roar! The beasts roared in unison, and they knelt before the Emperor. "Everyone, please lend me a hand. I need a large amount of desolate god herbs, spirit fruits, ores, and desolate god stones. If you have any clues, please inform me or send them to me." Yi Qinghan had no one he could use, but the beasts could, and they were willing to do so. Chapter 1209. With the help of the beasts, there was no need to worry about the lack of resources. In addition, the desolate god herbs had not been used for many years. They were everywhere, enough for these experts to enjoy for countless years without worrying about the lack of resources. The beasts retreated, leaving behind a ground full of resources. Yi Qinghan took all of them and put them into the Great Wasteland Monument. "Let's have a meal today and get familiar with each other. We will be teammates in the future. I don't want any internal conflicts," Yi Qinghan said with a hoarse voice. There were less than 1,000 people from the primal chaos realm and less than 1,000 survivors of the Great Wasteland. The 2 groups of people entered the small mountain village with more than enough space. Yi Qinghan sat at the head of the table, with Huang Peng on the right and Emperor Yi on the left. There were rows of tables neatly arranged. They were filled with rare spirit fruits that were filled with the power of the desolate god. From today onwards, do not use the power of the desolate god in battle, and do not use the great desolate divine art that I gave you. Otherwise, you will alarm the realm lords of the 7 realms. Yi Qinghan was extremely vigilant. The realm lords were indescribably powerful, and they were even more sensitive to the secret arts of the great desolate Tao scripture. They would be able to sense any abnormalities. Everyone ate crazily. This was not ordinary food, but rare spirit herbs. As a survivor of the Great Wasteland, Qian Pu she had never tasted them before. These were all treasures guarded by desolate beasts. Even at the peak of the Great Wasteland, only a few experts could taste them. Ordinary people could not find these things. This was a supplement. They ate as much as they could. It was better than rare spirit herbs. At this time, even the supreme gods were eating without restraint. However, after a while, they could not take it anymore. The power of the desolate god in their bodies could not be channeled and was rampaging in their bodies. Sure enough, after eating a fruit, everyone was stunned. Without the great desolate divine art, they could not control the power of the desolate god. The survivors of the Great Wasteland were better off, but the experts of the primal chaos realm were green and purple. Even Emperor Yi was twitching his mouth. After discovering the survivors of the Great Wilderness, Yi Qinghan was in a particularly good mood. He laughed heartily and said, "Everyone, relax and don't resist. I will send you into the Great Wasteland Steel. There will be enough resources. Captain Huang Peng will teach you how to cultivate the Great Wilderness Divine Technique. You can choose any divine technique you want." After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he stood up. His palms formed a seal and streaked across his forehead. The Great Wasteland imprint blossomed on his forehead, and the Great Wasteland imprint shot out. A beam of light shot out and sucked all the experts into the Great Wasteland imprint. The survivors of the Great Wilderness were also sent in. Large amounts of resources filled the Great Wasteland Steel. Many desolate beast experts were also sending in a steady stream of divine herbs and spirit fruit. Yi Qinghan was the only one left in the small mountain village. The divine beast was lying beside him, unwilling to go anywhere. Yi Qinghan used his arts to suppress the Great Wasteland imprint's divine power. He received a large number of desolate god stones, divine herbs, and spirit fruits from the desolate god beasts and filled the entire village. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged in the center. He opened his pores and began to crazily devour the divine power of the desolate god. He wanted to break through to the paramount god realm. The divine herb's rich divine power of the desolate god transformed into a beam of divine light that rushed towards Yi Qinghan's limbs and bones. It transformed his physical body. The Great Wilderness Tao body became crystal clear. Light flowed around it, making it look like a perfect piece of jade. Boom, boom, boom. Blood surged and roared. The scarlet blood under the veins on the surface of his body was clearly visible. It was as if even his blood had turned into energy. Every cell in his body contained a huge amount of divine power of the desolate god. Back in the day, Yi Qinghan had climbed to the peak. Now, he was just picking up the old path. Everything came naturally. As long as there was enough energy and time, he could become a realm lord as easily as eating and drinking. Yi Qinghan's black hair fluttered. His divine robe was piercingly cold. The divine power of the desolate god in his body was guided. The path of its circulation was completely different from that of ordinary people. Half of it flowed forward, while the other half flowed backward. It formed countless yin and yang trigrams. This divine power circulation made every inch of his skin a perfect array. It could withstand attacks of the same level. He didn't even need to defend. His physical body and the energy in his body would automatically defend. His vigorous and handsome face revealed an unconcealable charm. That kind of confidence and supreme aura seemed to be innate. It was as long as he stood there, he would be the king of the universe. He could not be disobeyed and could not be replaced. The Great Wilderness Tao Scripture's secret arts and profound laws did not need Yi Qinghan's control. They were all operating on their own. They did not know fatigue or time. Outside the village, more and more dire beasts brought in desolate god herbs and desolate spirit stones. The heaven-taming divine beast began to help deliver them to Yi Qinghan. The divine herbs around Yi Qinghan turned into fine powder and were quickly replaced by the heaven-taming divine beast with new divine herbs. Yi Qinghan was like a bottomless pit. He swallowed divine herbs one after another. The great wilderness Tao body was showing signs of perfection. The flaws that he could not erase back then, he would use countless divine herbs to erase them in this life. As long as he was truly perfect and reached the limit, he could break through and make up for his weakness back then. A little flaw might not be much. However, if every realm had a flaw, it would be a huge flaw. At the level of a realm lord, any small flaw would be infinitely magnified. That was why he was defeated back then. In this life, he would not allow himself to be defeated. Only by winning could he take revenge. Only by winning could he control his fate. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and tempered his corporeal body. There were no longer any impurities in his body. He was still absorbing boundless desolate God energy. The supreme God position was within his reach. The pressure on the heaven-taming divine beast gradually increased. It began to retreat slowly and did not dare to get close to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan seemed to have sensed something. He immediately restrained himself and tried his best not to leak out of the village to prevent the realm lords from sensing him. At this moment, one could see that Yi Qinghan was like a bomb with boundless energy. Once he exploded, he would destroy everything. However, once he left the village, he could no longer be sensed. I can break through to the supreme God position. After an unknown period of time and an unknown amount of resources, Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. His voice was hoarse and his clothes were covered in dust. His hair was white and covered in dust. Whether it was his soul or his corporeal body, Yi Qinghan had reached the peak of the giant God Great Circle. There was not a trace of flaw. This cycle repeated over and over again. Yi Qinghan finally confirmed that he had no flaws under the giant God Great Circle. He directly absorbed all the divine herbs in the periphery into the air and began to break through to the supreme God position. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The divine light was dense. The desolate God energy rushed in all directions like raging waves crashing against the shore. The entire village was shattered into fine powder. The divine energy transformed into 2 coiled dragons, forming a huge 8 trigrams array. It adhered to Yi Qinghan's body and magnified his pores countless times. One could see the desolate God energy rushing into his body and attacking the bottleneck. No matter how hard the bottleneck was, it could not withstand such destruction. Chapter 12:10. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan's body glowed brightly as if he was about to soar into the sky. The heaven-taming divine beast was worried that it would cause a phenomenon in the world, so it sealed off the surrounding 100 miles and covered the area with desolate clouds. The rolling clouds covered the sky and covered the earth, plunging the mountain village into darkness. 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 2 whole years passed. 2 years later. In order to reach perfection, Yi Qinghan did not hesitate to waste time. At this moment, his soul controlled the overflowing desolate divine power in his body and rushed to his limbs and bones, turning into divine weapons that destroyed the bottlenecks in all directions. His aura soared, rushing into the paramount God realm. Becoming a paramount God was only the beginning. It still needed to be stabilized. He had to forge the paramount God realm to perfection. Another tiny person appeared in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. It cultivated the profound mysteries of the great desolate world, a familiar world and familiar profound laws. It had almost reached perfection in the past, and now, it only needed 1 step. The tiny person in the sea of consciousness used the profound laws, stirring up the sea of bitterness, love, and hate. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, whoosh. The tiny person raised a rainbow above the sea of bitterness, stirring up tens of thousands of waves. The heavy sword in his hand constantly slashed out blade lights, shooting into the endless sea of consciousness and illuminating the dark abyss. At that moment, he realized that there were still many things in the depths of the sea of consciousness that he had not used yet. In an instant, Yi Qinghan was enlightened. A flower, a world. I am a world. I can also create a world. Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes, piercing through the void and shooting out of the great desolate world. The fear and ignorance of the past suddenly became clear. Why should I despair? Give me time. I will definitely break through the realm Lord Realm and become a controller. Yi Qinghan looked up and clenched his fists. He wanted to become an existence that could control everything, including his own fate. Step by step, he saw through the shackles of the world, saw through the mysteries of the myriad laws. It was as if nothing was an obstacle. The confidence in his eyes became more solid. There was no need to cultivate bitterly to reach perfection. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched as he looked at the Great Wasteland's monument. He waved his hand and pulled someone out. It was none other than Yi Qinghan. Looking at Yi Qinghan's impatient face, Yi Qinghan was infuriated. He scolded sternly, "What do you want now?" Yi Qinghan's handsome face was filled with impatience. Although he was 60% similar to Yi Qinghan, their temperaments were completely different. They were like heaven and earth. Nothing. I don't need you to care about me. I'm not a member of the crazy sect, Yi Kuan said coldly and walked out. Yi Qinghan was enraged. He raised his hand and slapped him. Pa! Boom! Yi Qinghan slapped Yi Kuan's face and kicked him to the ground. Then, he used his divine power to pull Yi Kuan up from the ground and held him in his palm. No matter how hard Yi Kuan struggled, he could not break free from his palm. I'm your brother. Why do you have to compete with me for everything? Do you have to suppress me to be happy? Boom! Yi Qinghan punched him in the head and pressed him to the ground. He punched and kicked him, causing Yi Kuan to scream in pain. I was the one who raised you. I taught you how to walk and how to cultivate. I taught you everything and provided you with resources to cultivate. Yet you fought with me for everything. Bang! 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 Yi Qinghan punched and kicked him a few more times, but he still could not vent his anger. He roared angrily, "Is it embarrassing to lose to me? You were so talented since you were young. Yet, you gave up after losing a few times. Are you still a man? Do you know how many times I've lost? My great wasteland's domain was destroyed. How many billions of lives were lost? I've lost. I regret it, I resent it, I hate it, but I struggled hard. I wanted to control my own fate. In 9 reincarnations I was killed every time. In this life, because of your stubbornness, the Yi clan was annihilated. Only the 2 of us are left. Are you still not going to wake up? How many times do you want me to hit you before you turn back?" Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and smashed Yi Kuan's head with his body. Yi Kuan's head was smashed until it bled. Yi Kuan curled up on the ground and struggled to stand up. He fought with Yi Qinghan. The hostility and killing intent in his eyes made him lose his mind. The 2 brothers no longer dodged. They took the attacks head-on and fought each other. There are so many people in the arrogant sect. Are they related to me by blood? Yet, they treat me as a brother. I help them and they help me selflessly. Are those people in the chaos realm related to me? In order to survive, even if the enemy is so strong, have they ever retreated? What about you? You are my brother. Other than causing trouble for me, what else can you do? I hope that one day, you can stand by my side and help me. Even if the mountains and rivers are stained with blood, you can shout that you have no regrets. If you are in danger, I will protect you with my life. But your actions only disappoint me endlessly. Yi Qinghan's face was ferocious. He was furious and punched Yi Kuan's head. Boom! Buzz! Yi Kuan was sent flying. He crashed into the dilapidated outer city wall. His head buzzed as if it had exploded. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices. Look at what you've become. Go back to the ancestral land and look at your parents' tombstones. Go back and look at the mirror. Do you still look like a human? Where did your fighting spirit go? Yi Qinghan roared angrily. Cough, cough, Yi Kun coughed up blood. His hair was disheveled like a madman. He struggled several times but could not stand up. This was the worst time he had ever been beaten by Yi Qinghan. Crack, 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 murderous intent rose in Yi Qinghan's heart. He slowly closed his eyes and activated his divine power. He wanted to completely destroy his last hope. Yi Kun was very talented and could go very far. Unfortunately, his vision was obscured by the miasma. What a pity! Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. He slowly raised his arms and locked onto Yi Kun with his divine sense. Brother, I was wrong. Yi Kun's mouth was full of blood. He half knelt on the ground. Yi Qinghan's raised hands paused. He stared at Yi Kun and realized that he was not looking at him. He did not know if Yi Kun had noticed his murderous intent or if he was truly remorseful. What was wrong? Yi Qinghan asked hoarsely. I shouldn't have been so obsessed with defeating you. You are my brother. A brother is like a father. Why should I want to defeat you? You will give me whatever I want. You have never rejected me. I was too stupid. I was too stupid. I neglected your love for me. Cough, cough, Yi Kun coughed up blood and slowly sat down under the collapsed city wall. He looked at Yi Qinghan. There seemed to be a sense of release in his eyes. The murderous intent in his eyes was gone. It seemed that he had truly understood. Yi Qinghan stared at Yi Kun. There was no trace of obsession or demonic energy in his eyes. If Yi Kun had really used this method to deceive him, then he would be too terrifying. However, if Yi Kun had truly repented and killed him now, Yi Qinghan would not be satisfied. Chapter 12:11. Yi Qinghan pondered for a long time and decided to test him again. He was too tired from this test of kinship. He said hoarsely, "Rest assured and cultivate in the Great Wastelands Monument. No matter where you go, I will always be your brother. I will give you a copy of your secret technique." After he finished speaking, Yi Qinghan sent a powerful spirit-absorbing secret technique from the Great Wasteland Tao scripture into Yi Kun's sea of consciousness. This was his last chance for Yi Kun. If Yi Kun disappointed him, he would not show any mercy. "Yes, brother, I will definitely avenge you," Yi Kun said resolutely, as if he had been woken up by the beating and scolding. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. Even if Yi Kun did not help him, it would be best if Yi Kun did not disappoint him. This wish was not difficult to fulfill. It all depended on Yi Kun. Whether he lived or died, it was all in his hands. Go in. If there is anything you do not understand, ask Huang Peng. Call him master. If you disappoint me again, there will be no brotherhood between us," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. After he finished speaking, he controlled the Great Wastelands Monument and sucked him in again. Immediately after, Yi Qinghan entered the Great Wastelands Monument and found Emperor Yi. He said in a low voice, "I will go to the Snow Country and the God Realm. I will leave the Great Wastelands Monument to you for now. With a thought, everyone can enter and exit freely. However, keep an eye on Yi Kun. If he dares to leave this place, kill him immediately." Emperor Yi was stunned. He looked at Yi Qinghan's determined eyes and nodded. Yi Qinghan watched as everyone cultivated in a drunken stupor. Ignoring the passage of time, he silently withdrew from the Great Wastelands stele. After leaving the Great Wastelands Monument, Yi Qinghan sent in another portion of resources, enough for less than 2,000 people to cultivate for tens of thousands of years. Then, he buried the Great Wastelands Monument in the ground, leaving no trace behind. Yi Qinghan forced out a drop of blood essence and transformed it into a human. It had flesh and blood and looked exactly like Yi Qinghan. The only thing missing was its strength. It had the cultivation of a high deity, but it had his complete memories and a strand of his soul. This body of flesh and blood took his place to receive the resources here. Then, it rode on the divine beast and left this place. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The heaven-taming divine beast turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed out of the sea towards the great desolation palace. Whoosh, whoosh. Its speed was almost on par with the desolate Peng. Once it evolved again, it would surpass the desolate Peng's speed. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan appeared above the great desolation palace. He watched as the star-twining vines grew crazily, covering 1,000-li radius around the great desolation palace. It was about to seal the entrance to the Wangu Yuntian sky. There were vines everywhere, and Yi Qinghan had no doubt that these vines could kill giant gods effortlessly. Guard the entrance. If anyone disobeys my orders and leaves in the direction of the exit of the great wasteland domain, kill them without mercy. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Swoosh, swoosh. The star-twining vine waved its vines in response to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan then rode on the heaven-taming divine beast and rushed towards the exit of the great wasteland domain. With the heaven-taming divine beast, he didn't need to waste any energy. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan appeared at the exit. Seeing that the exit was sealed and intertwined with rays of light, he patted the heaven-taming divine beast's head and whispered, "Go back, help me guard the great wasteland domain." After the heaven-taming divine beast left, Yi Qinghan touched the boundary of the exit with a single hand. His soul merged with the great wasteland domain, and his figure slowly disappeared. Outside the great wasteland domain, there were no experts guarding it. Heading towards the northwest was the divine world of the snow country. Yi Qinghan knew the coordinates and suppressed the great wasteland domain's godforce. He began to mobilize the spiritual essence of the ice and snow and flew towards the depths. After flying for 3 months, he finally found a human city. He paid a portion of the spiritual essence stones as the price to borrow the space gate and teleported to the outside of the city amongst the clouds. After arriving outside the city amongst the clouds, Yi Qinghan didn't enter the city. Instead, he went straight to the Black Sky County. It was already nighttime, and the Black Sky County was pitch black. Only the Fragrance Pavilion was still open, but there weren't many people. Yi Qinghan spread out his divine sense and found Sister Yao in a room on the 4th floor. His figure flashed and disappeared from the Fragrance Pavilion. When he reappeared, he was already behind Sister Yao. Sister Yao turned around and looked at Yi Qinghan. She was so scared that her face turned ashen, and her body trembled. "You didn't die? Didn't you say that everyone in the city amongst the clouds was annihilated, except for the team from Cloud Zhonghai?" Sister Yao asked in horror. Yi Qinghan laughed evilly. He reached out and hooked Sister Yao's chin. He said hoarsely, "Do you want me to die?" Sister Yao was silent for a moment before she shook her head slightly. As for whether it was true or not, only she knew. "I came back this time to help you kill Yun Zhongjuan. How do you want to repay me?" Yi Qinghan asked with a smile. Sister Yao's eyes narrowed as she looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. How long had it been? He was still in the giant god realm. How could he kill Yun Zhongjuan? Yi Qinghan laughed disdainfully. As the great Desolation Realm Lord, even if his cultivation was only at the paramount god realm, it wouldn't take much effort for him to kill the city lord of a small city that was close to the paramount god realm. Killing him is easy, but I don't want to alarm the realm lord. So, on the surface, I need Yun Zhonghai to manage the city for me. So, I'll have to inconvenience your little husband. If I enslave him, will your heart ache? Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Can you not kill Yun Zhonghai? Sister Yao muttered. Yi Qinghan shrugged. It seemed like his charm wasn't good enough. He had slept with Sister Yao twice, but she still hadn't won over him. Her heart was still with that person. I can spare his life, but I need your help to make him obedient. It's best if he doesn't suffer from mutual destruction. Otherwise he'll die, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Sister Yao nodded, agreeing to Yi Qinghan's condition. It's too late tonight. I'll take action tomorrow night. After saying that, Yi Qinghan stared at Sister Yao. Looking at her formal attire that didn't reveal anything, he felt an inexplicable urge to laugh in his heart. I like obedient people. Clearly, you're more obedient than me. After saying that, Yi Qinghan savagely tore apart Sister Yao's dress. The next day, Yi Qinghan got up and sat cross-legged on his bed to cultivate. He discovered that the harmony of yin and yang was exceptionally effective for his cultivation. It could actually accelerate the circulation of his spiritual constitution, allowing him to cultivate twice as fast with half the effort. His ice elemental spiritual constitution had actually reached the peak of the giant god realm. It wouldn't be long before he became a dual elemental paramount god. He sat there for an entire day. Sister Yao didn't disturb Yi Qinghan's cultivation. She sat beside him, her heart filled with excitement and urgency. She constantly wished for Yun Zhongjuan's death. Yi Qinghan was about to take action. Although she wasn't confident, what if he really killed Yun Zhongjuan? The sky gradually darkened. Yi Qinghan opened his dark eyes, which flickered with a cold light. He slowly got up, wrapped his arm around Sister Yao's slender waist, and left the fragrance pavilion. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His speed was as fast as lightning, and he used the shrinking technique. 6 hours later, he entered the city amongst the clouds. At this moment, the lights of the city amongst the clouds had just been extinguished. Let's find Yun Zhonghai first. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. Before taking action, he had to find a scapegoat. If Yun Zhongjuan's death alerted a realm lord or a limit paramount god, Yun Zhonghai would have no choice but to take the blame. Chapter 12:12. Yun Zhonghai was still cultivating in his courtyard. The weak moonlight shone on his pale face. 2 black silhouettes appeared behind him, but Sis Yao's heavy breathing caught his attention. Who's there? Yun Zhonghai reacted quickly. He stood up, turned around, and saw Yi Qinghan and Sister Yao. He was both shocked and delighted. What are you doing here? Yun Zhonghai was a little dazed by Sister Yao's arrival. He had neglected the fact that Yi Qinghan had appeared so silently that he had even managed to hide from his divine sense. I came to see you. Sister Yao stepped forward, reaching out to hug Yun Zhonghai. How could Yun Zhonghai still be on guard? He let his guard down. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, and the blade in his hand slammed into the back of Yun Zhonghai's head. An icy aura directly sealed his soul. Yun Zhonghai immediately fainted, and Yi Qinghan placed a restrictive spell on him. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan removed the frigid spiritual essence and unsealed Yun Zhonghai. Only then did Yun Zhonghai wake up. Yi Qinghan had acted so quickly that Yun Zhonghai was confused. However, he quickly realized that he had been enslaved by the restrictive spell on his sea of consciousness. Yun Zhonghai was furious. He pointed at Yi Qinghan, his eyes cold. It's good that you're obedient, Yi Qinghan said coolly. If I want to kill you, I can do it with a single thought. You won't be able to do anything. What are you planning to do? Yun Zhonghai asked. Kill Yun Zhongjuan and make you the city lord of Cloudtop. Yi Qinghan said. However, you have to announce that Yun Zhonghai suffered cultivation deviation while trying to break through to the paramount god realm. He tried to kill the innocent and you killed him. Yun Zhonghai looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. It was as if the heavens had fallen into his lap. Other than being enslaved, there was nothing he couldn't accept. Yi Qinghan smiled when he saw Yun Zhonghai agree without hesitation. However, in his heart, he saw Yun Zhonghai's shadow in his eyes. Yun Zhonghai wasn't someone to be trusted. Once the crisis was over, Yun Zhonghai would be his first target. Give me your weapon. Yi Qinghan smiled at Yun Zhonghai and extended his hand. Yun Zhonghai had no choice but to give his life weapon to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan forcibly erased Yun Zhongjuan's divine sense, dripped a drop of blood on the divine weapon, and then hid it in his sleeve. After asking for Yun Zhongjuan's location, he quietly disappeared. Yun Zhonghai looked at Sister Yao with a reproachful expression. "Why are you helping him harm me?" With a bitter smile, Sister Yao lowered her head and said, "I had no other choice. Otherwise, he would have killed you as well. Little Yao, when he kills Yun Zhongjuan, you must ask him to undo my restriction. No matter what price we have to pay, we have to endure it. In the future, you and I will be the masters of Cloud City." Yun Zhonghai pleaded in a low voice. Sister Yao looked at Yun Zhonghai's crazed appearance and frowned. She probed, "What if I have to pay the price with my body and soul?" "We'll endure the humiliation first. It's just a body. I love your soul. As long as it's you, I will love it. Don't mind it, okay?" Yun Zhonghai took a step forward, wanting to hug Sister Yao. A hint of disappointment flashed in Sister Yao's eyes. The two brothers were the same. They were both selfish people. Thus, she took a few steps back and said in a low voice, "I'll try my best. Whether or not I can make him change his mind will depend on fate." Zhengyun Palace was where Yun Zhongjuan cultivated in seclusion. The 7-story iron tower spiraled upward, and the layers of mechanisms were set up like iron buckets. There were no flaws at all. Yun Zhongjuan didn't trust anyone. Apart from him, no one was allowed to approach this place. If someone triggered the mechanism, he would kill them as soon as he came out. In the past, a few wives who relied on his love and children to trigger the mechanism had failed to escape death. Yi Qinghan appeared outside the iron tower like a ghost. He looked at the 3 layers of barriers inside and outside and smiled disdainfully. He approached the barrier in the night and effortlessly passed through it. However, he didn't trigger the barrier's counterattack. He continued to climb up the spiral staircase. The inner rooms were all open, and they were filled with supreme holy herbs and secret arts. They were all priceless treasures. These were Yun Zhongjuan's life's work. Even Yi Qinghan felt envious just looking at them. The divine bird and the little miser were also startled, but they were suppressed by Yi Qinghan's bloodline. Yi Qinghan continued to float upward. His feet didn't touch the ground, and his clothes didn't touch the walls. He didn't make any sound. Yun Zhongjuan was trying to break through to the Supreme God realm on the 7th floor. He had reached the most critical moment. At this moment, the Supreme God's aura was constantly emanating from him. It was getting denser and denser. He was fully focused on breaking through the bottleneck and no longer paid attention to the outside world. Yi Qinghan reached the 7th floor and saw a powerful middle-aged man with his back facing the door. The door was ajar, and there was a barrier protecting this place. Yi Qinghan turned into a wisp of pure ice spirit and fused with the barrier. When he reappeared, he was already in the room. Yun Zhongjuan didn't notice it. After all, Yi Qinghan's soul was too powerful. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was a supreme god. Yun Zhongjuan hadn't officially broken through to the supreme god realm yet. It was an honor for him to be assassinated by an invincible supreme god expert. A wisp of ice spirit attached to the divine sword. It was as fast as lightning and pierced through the back of Yun Zhongjuan's head. Then, Yi Qinghan grabbed Yun Zhongjuan's neck and punched his temple. Bang! Pooh! The powerful Yun Zhongjuan screamed in despair, but his throat was locked, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He struggled to turn his head, and all he saw was a handsome young man with a mocking look in his eyes. The smile on his face made him despair. Yun Zhongjuan only had time to say one word before his soul was shattered by Yi Qinghan's palm. Boom! Yi Qinghan released Yun Zhongjuan's corpse. From the outside, it looked like he only had a sword wound, but in reality, his internal organs and soul had all been crushed by the powerful ice spirit and turned into dust. There was no hope of survival. I'm just here to take your life, Yi Qinghan whispered. He looked at the several Supreme God pills and Supreme God treasures around him, then waved his hand and sucked them all away. Then, he went downstairs and took away all the treasures in the Iron Tower, leaving nothing behind. Soon, Yi Qinghan silently left Righteous Cloud Palace and returned to Yun Zhonghai's courtyard. The two of them were 5 meters apart. Sister Yao remained vigilant, not wanting Yun Zhonghai to come close. Shua. Yi Qinghan casually removed the spiritual consciousness from the divine sword and tossed it to Yun Zhonghai. He said calmly, Yun Zhongjuan is dead. Do a good job. From today onwards, you will be in charge of Cloud City. I want to nurture a group of geniuses. Help me prepare a large amount of divine herbs and high-grade spiritual god stone. All right, but can you undo the seal on me? I'm willing to take all the responsibility for you, Yun Zhonghai probed. If you do well enough, it's not impossible to undo the seal. But now it's impossible. Sister Yao's words are also useless. Remember, don't betray me. Otherwise, your entire clan will be wiped out by me. I've placed a seal on them. It's just that they haven't discovered it yet, said Yi Qinghan coldly. Chapter 12-13. Yi Qinghan didn't give Yun Zhonghai the slightest chance. The only way to deal with an emotionless creature was to use the most forceful method. Perhaps he didn't care about the lives of his clansmen, but he had to care about his own life. Send all the best resources to Black Sky County, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Also, send a message that you have a disciple named Zhuxiaoma, and that person is me. Got it? All right, I'll definitely complete the mission, Yun Zhonghai said helplessly. Live well. I'll help you become a paramount god. Then, you'll have territory and women. Otherwise, you'll return to the dust. With that, Yi Qinghan tossed out a transmission talisman, grabbed Big Sis Yao, and left the North District. That very night, Yun Zhonghai mobilized his subordinates to take control of the North District. He took control of the Yun clan, killing all of the guards and replacing them with his subordinates. With the North District under his control, all that was left were the mines, shops, and organizations in the various cities and counties. Yun Zhonghai had been preparing for years to take control of the city, and it was all used in one night. However, there were still many properties that he couldn't take back. They were very powerful, and they were loyal only to Yun Zhongjuan. For example, the Aroma Pavilion, Mount Monarch, and Heavenly Dragon Stronghold. The Aroma Pavilion was under the control of Lady 13, whose cultivation wasn't any weaker than Yun Zhonghai's. She and the women under her control were inextricably linked. When news of Yun Zhongjuan's death spread, Lady 13 was like a wild horse that had lost control. She withdrew her power overnight, taking control of the Aroma Pavilion in the various cities and counties. She also contacted a few powerful organizations to fight against Yun Zhonghai. Clearly, she wanted to break away from the city. In the end, Yun Zhonghai had no choice but to ask Yi Qinghan for help. Yi Qinghan didn't leave the city amongst the clouds. Instead, he found an inn in the southern part of the city, and the two of them checked in. When he learned that Lady 13 was going to rebel, and that her forces were powerful and intertwined, he couldn't help but sneer. The more powerful someone was, the more fun it would be to deal with them. He had seen this woman before, and she was very strong. She was very close to being a paramount god. In the past, he hadn't been a match for her, but now, he could easily kill her. However, Yi Qinghan obviously did not want to kill her. This woman was very useful, even more useful than Yun Zhonghai. Stay here and don't move around. Wait for me to come back. Yi Qinghan tossed out these words and left the tavern, leaving Sister Yao alone. East of the city, Fragrance Pavilion. The 10 golden flowers under Matron 13 were all people with extraordinary cultivation bases, far more powerful than ordinary giant gods. Their cultivation bases were second only to hers, and they were all sitting on the roof of the fragrant fragrance pavilion, facing her. Yun Zhongjuan's sudden death must have had something to do with Yun Zhongjuan, but it doesn't matter. His death will only benefit me. Every year, we earn countless spirit quality god stones, and in the end, 80% of them are taken away by Yun Zhongjuan. Now, it's time for us to make plans for ourselves, Lady 13 said excitedly. We will follow your orders to the death, Matron 13. The 10 golden flowers were all extremely seductive, and any one of them could easily seduce a group of men. Their seduction techniques were legendary, and when the 10 of them worked together, they could even suppress a paramount god. Good. Only by working together can we find a way out. The fragrant fragrance pavilion cannot fall into the hands of Yun Zhongjuan. Otherwise, our lives will be even more difficult than under Yun Zhongjuan, Lady 13 said firmly. The 10 seductive women nodded in agreement. I've already contacted Mount Monarch and Sky Dragon's stronghold. We're going to enter the northern part of the city and force Yun Zhonghai to admit that we're separate from the city lord of Cloud City. Is that so? A deep voice echoed in the room. It was hoarse and forceful, and it made everyone's hair stand on end. Who is it? Lady 13 was shocked and stood up, but she couldn't find any trace of the person who spoke. The 10 golden flowers were also on guard, and they looked around vigilantly. Yi Qinghan pushed open the door and entered. A gentle breeze blew, and his battle robe and hair fluttered. The faint evil smile on his face stunned Lady 13 and the others. Lady 13 frowned and remembered Yi Qinghan's identity. After all, it was hard to forget someone like him after seeing him once. It's you. Didn't you and Yun Qi enter the Great Wasteland domain and die there? Lady 13 asked in shock. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and closed the door. He walked into the circle of the 10 golden flowers and said calmly, I'm lucky to have escaped. The atmosphere in the room was strange, and Lady 13 and the 10 golden flowers were on high alert. They felt that Yi Qinghan wasn't easy to deal with, so they didn't make a move. Then what do you want? You've been subdued by Yun Zhonghai, and now you want to deal with us? Lady 13 asked coldly. Something like that. Yi Qinghan smiled. Lady 13 knew the purpose of Yi Qinghan's visit and smiled charmingly. Her figure flashed, and she appeared beside Yi Qinghan. She took the initiative to stick her body to him. Little brother Yi, what benefits can you get from submitting to Yun Zhonghai? Why don't you come to my fragrance pavilion? You can have all the money and beauties in the pavilion, including me. Lady 13's beautiful body appeared beside Yi Qinghan, and her voice was irresistible. Ring ring ring. The 10 golden flowers began to move, and the bells on her hands and feet turned into a heavenly sound that attacked Yi Qinghan's soul. Her melodious laughter accompanied the attack, and her perfect dance was definitely enough to make any man unable to blink. Little brother, join my fragrance pavilion, okay? The 10 golden flowers grabbed Yi Qinghan's hand and asked softly. Shwa, Yi Qinghan suddenly moved and disappeared without a trace. Pa pa pa. Yi Qinghan turned into a blur and hit the 10 golden flowers and Lady 13's necks at the same time, imprisoning their soul and soul space. No matter how strong they were, they couldn't use even 1/10,000th of their strength. Yi Qinghan shook his head and whispered in a hoarse voice, You are indeed very beautiful and moving. My heart can also be moved. Unfortunately, you are like poisonous poppies. I want to touch you, but I don't dare to touch you. Lady 13 was so shocked that her body trembled. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan's will and soul to be so strong. His cultivation had even surpassed the limit of a giant god. In an instant, he suppressed all 11 of them at the same time. Yi Qinghan, why are you doing this? Our cooperation is 1,000 times better than you submitting to Yun Zhonghai. You can choose the resources, wealth, and beauties you want. What can Yun Zhonghai give you? Lady 13 frowned and tried to persuade him. Who said I submitted to Yun Zhonghai? It's just a cooperation. We each take what we need. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Then we can cooperate too. As long as you say it, we will do it for you. Lady 13 said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan slowly sat down on a chair and looked at the 11 beauties standing in front of him. The faint evil smile on his face sent chills down their spines. The 10 golden flowers and Lady 13 had been on the battlefield for a long time, but now they were embarrassed by Yi Qinghan's stare. Not only were their bodies displayed in front of him, but even their souls were seen through. Cooperation, of course we have to cooperate. Otherwise, do you think you will have the chance to stand in front of me? Yi Qinghan whispered. Chapter 12-14. Cooperate? Of course, we have to cooperate. Otherwise, do you think you'll still have the chance to stand in front of me? Yi Qinghan was bursting with confidence. Although Lady 13 and the golden flowers were as beautiful as flowers and even a supreme god couldn't resist their temptation, his soul was that of a realm lord. This little bit of temptation was useless to him. Whether it was in the past or now, what hadn't he seen before? As pure as Ren Huangyi, as gentle as Jian Shui, and as fiery as Long Zai, their mouths were definitely enough to make people drool. They were all top-notch. Although yin-yang pleasure was what men loved the most, he would not lose himself for this. How do you want to cooperate? Lady 13 asked softly. Her temper was gone. I'll replace Yun Zhongjuan, and everything else will remain the same. However, you'll take 30% of the wealth and the remaining 70% will be mine. After 100 years, if you perform well enough, 40% will be yours and 60% will be mine. There's no room for negotiation. This is my bottom line. If you don't agree, I'll kill you directly. When the time comes, the pavilion master of the fragrance pavilion will replace you. Yi Qinghan gave the final answer without any room for negotiation. Then, what about Yun Zhonghai? Lady 13 asked in surprise. Him? In the future, you'll each take care of your own business. He won't make things difficult for you, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Lady 13 was a smart woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to become the chief pavilion master. If she still couldn't guess that Yun Zhonghai was being controlled, then she would be too stupid. Okay. I agree. You'll be our master from now on. Master, please release our restrictions. Lady 13 hesitated for a moment before agreeing. No matter how stubborn she was, she couldn't stand the threat of death. Yi Qinghan's share of the resources was 2 or 3 times better than Yun Zhongjuan's. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan extended a strand of desolate energy from his fingertip. Together with some spiritual stones, he attached it to the women's souls and released their restrictions. You are not allowed to reveal my identity to anyone. You are not allowed to tell anyone. Tell everyone that you have nothing to do with the City Lord's mansion in Cloud City. You are an independent organization, Yi Qinghan reminded them. Lady 13's expression turned ugly. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan to place such restrictions. This meant that their lives were in his hands at all times. Their lives were at his mercy. But after thinking about it, if they didn't agree, they would die right now. It was better to drag it out. As long as they were useful, Yi Qinghan wouldn't kill them and would even treat them well. Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. Yi Qinghan boasted shamelessly. He was the one who said he was not a good person, and he was also the one who said he was not a bad person. Yes, master. The 11 women hurriedly put on their clothes and bowed. Mistress Shirsan, get the chief of Heavenly Dragon Village to come out first. Then, get the chief of Mount Monarch. I want to control them as well. Yi Qinghan said firmly. It was better to use the fragrance pavilion to get the troublesome ones to come out one by one. Lady 13 immediately contacted the chief of Heavenly Dragon Village, Long Shirshir's father. Long Kuei was an elegant middle-aged man. His cultivation was at the peak of the giant god realm. His power was not small, second only to Mount Monarch. When he heard that the chief of the Fragrance Pavilion wanted to meet Lady 13, he immediately rushed over in order to deal with Yun Zhonghai. Entering the top floor of the Fragrance Pavilion, Long Kue looked at the 12 people. He naturally knew the 10 golden flowers, but he didn't know Yi Qinghan. "This fellow Taoist is?" Long Kue asked faintly. "I'm Yi Qinghan." Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and looked at the defenseless Long Kue. He instantly sealed his spiritual space with a finger. Bang! Long Kue was sent flying and hit a chair. He looked at Yi Qinghan and Lady 13 with a furious face. "Mistress 13, this old man only came because of you. Why are you attacking me now?" Lady 13 smiled bitterly and shook her head. She was speechless. "Don't blame them because I've already subdued them. They are now my people. I want Heavenly Dragon Village to submit or be destroyed. Choose one." Yi Qinghan said faintly. "You." Long Kue was burning with anger, but he didn't know what to do. If Yi Qinghan only wanted to deal with him, he could die for his village. However, if he didn't agree, Yi Qinghan would destroy his entire village. Although Heavenly Dragon Village was powerful, without him as the backbone, even the Fragrance Pavilion wouldn't be able to resist, not to mention Yun Zhonghai who was eyeing them covetously. Yi Qinghan smiled and sat down again. He said faintly, "I forgot to tell you that your son and daughter, Long Jinghu and Long Shirshir, are in my hands." "What? They didn't die?" Long Kue was shocked. The last time he entered the Great Wasteland domain to gain experience, the entire team from Cloud City was almost annihilated. Only Yun Zhonghai's team managed to escape. He thought that Long Jinghu and Long Shirshir were dead, but their life tablets were still intact. Yi Qinghan smiled and didn't say anything, waiting for Long Kue to make his choice. "I choose to submit. As long as you don't oppress my family like Yun Zhongjuan," Long Kue said helplessly. Heavenly Dragon Village's resource allocation is the same as Fragrance Pavilion. Yi Qinghan quickly explained the resource allocation of Fragrance Pavilion. Long Kue was satisfied. Then Yi Qinghan signaled Lady 13 to continue contacting the Lord of Mount Monarch. However, the Lord of Mount Monarch came with 3 guards, all of whom were very powerful. They were all giant god great perfection stage experts, but as long as they weren't supreme gods, their numbers were just a number. When the speed was fast to the limit, the number of people couldn't affect the overall situation. Yi Qinghan quickly suppressed the Lord of Mount Monarch and the 3 guards. Mount Monarch was dealt with faster than Long Kue. The Lord of Mount Monarch was more afraid of death and was also old. Then, Lady 13 invited all the more powerful forces over. Yi Qinghan waited for them to fall into the trap. In one day, the most powerful forces who didn't want to submit to Yi Qinghan gathered here. They were all suppressed by Yi Qinghan and set up restrictions. After dealing with these people, Yi Qinghan took control of all the forces in Yun Zhonghai's territory. With this as a base, he could slowly expand and use the resources here to cultivate experts. When the day came for the counterattack, the realm lords of the 7 realms would find that part of their territory had been swallowed up. Soon, Yi Qinghan prepared to take advantage of the chaos to develop an academy. He would recruit some geniuses in Yun Zhonghai's territory and cultivate them to strengthen his own strength. The Genius Academy had the support of various major forces. In less than a month, it was established. The Genius Academy didn't require the age or cultivation of the students to be high. They were all recruited from a young age to cultivate their loyalty and sense of belonging. This was to prevent them from becoming the enemy's helpers in the decisive battle. The establishment of the academy was under the name of the City Lord of Yun Zhonghai. Nominally, it was to take care of all the geniuses so that they wouldn't go to waste. Moreover, there weren't many places. Every major city and county would be rewarded for producing a student. Therefore, all the major villages and strongholds were selecting elite. The county lord even provided some children with realm gates for them to use for free. Chapter 12-15. With the emergence of the Genius Academy, the city lord of the city amongst the clouds was much more relaxed. With the support of the people in the huge territory, all the major clans were controlled. Everything went smoothly. Yi Qinghan stayed behind the scenes, and no one knew that he was manipulating the leaders of the four major forces below the city. Everything was done according to his rules. The Genius Academy was located on Purple Cloud Mountain in the southeast of the city amongst the clouds. The spiritual essence here was rich, and Yi Qinghan had set up a formation to gather all kinds of spiritual essence in the world. It was a holy land for cultivation. Yi Qinghan personally oversaw the Genius Academy. He appeared as the first dean, Yun Zhonghai's disciple. His name was Zhuofeng, and he was proficient in the Yun family's falling sword style. His cultivation was at the peak stage of the giant god realm. These days, a large number of young children were attracted to take the assessment, and a large number of giant god great perfection stage were recruited as the 3 vice deans. 30 giant god great perfection stage powerhouses were the upper mentors, and more than 100 ordinary giant gods were the lower mentors. Everything was divided in an orderly manner. Many powerful forces had sent the strongest elites from their clans or sects to participate in the Genius Academy's assessment, but more of them were ordinary village children without any family background. Their talents weren't bad, but they didn't have the resources to nurture them. Many people were reduced to ordinary people because of this. This time, the Genius Academy provided free nurturing, and the resources were distributed according to contribution points or talent. No one was dissatisfied. Many people came down from Purple Cloud Mountain. In the huge city amongst the clouds, there were countless villages and strongholds. The villagers and hunters brought their children to wait for the assessment. Some small clans brought more than a dozen children under the leadership of their patriarchs, hoping that someone would enter the Genius Academy. The assessment of the Genius Academy was very strict. First, one had to pay attention to willpower, second was the Tao heart, third was talent, fourth was opportunity, and fifth was luck. The comprehensive score of the 5 assessment subjects had to be in the top 1,000 to enter the Genius Academy. 1,000 places weren't considered little, but compared to the number of people who came for the assessment, it was too little. 1 in 10,000. However, the assessment here was free. Even if one failed, one could get 5 Earth-class spiritual essence spirit stones. If one had good talent but was eliminated, they would even be rewarded with some heaven-class spiritual essence spirit stones. Yi Qinghan sat on the peak of Purple Cloud Mountain and watched everyone take the assessment. His eyes were like torches, and the distance of 1,000 meters was close. Purple Chi came from the east and stayed on the peak for a long time, like a fairyland. A gust of wind blew past, ruffling his black hair. Yi Qinghan leaned against a huge rock at the top of the mountain, picking his teeth with a strand of wild grass. His mind was spinning, thinking about how he could quietly erode this vast snow empire's divine realm. Boss, the people from the snow country are here. They said that they want to investigate the cause of Yun Zhongjuan's death. Yun Zhonghai is now stalling for time to prevent those people from touching Yun Zhongjuan's body, Shenlang whispered. It's a prince and a princess. They have 5 realm soldiers with them. Their cultivation is very high. I can't see through them. Shenlang quickly said. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment. It was impossible for such a huge empire to send a prince and a princess to check the death of a small city's city lord. He said, "It's okay. They should be traveling. They must be nearby." They heard that the city amongst the clouds changed hands and came to check it out. "I'll go take a look. You stay here and help me look after the Genius Academy. If there's anyone causing trouble, just kill them." With that, Yi Qinghan's figure flickered and left Violet Cloud Mountain. In the north city of the city, amongst the clouds, in the courtyard of the city lord's mansion, Yun Zhonghai was kneeling beside a stone table in a forest pavilion. He kept asking people to bring the best spirit fruits, spirit herbs, and exceptional wine for two young people to taste. In terms of appearance, both of them were the best in the world. They were extremely talented. The girl was even more beautiful. She had an otherworldly temperament and emitted a royal aura. She was the favored princess of the imperial city. Her name was Xuewu. The young man was much calmer. He had a heroic spirit and wisdom between his brows. His every move outlined the posture of a superior. He was the chiliarch of a 1,000-man realm army. His name was Xuewuhan. He had lived in the army since he was young and was very cautious. The 5 young experts were distributed outside the forest pavilion. Their waists were straight, their clothes were uniform, and they had swords at their waist. Their actions were well behaved. They were definitely the best kings in the army. They should be the legendary realm army. Yun Zhonghai, where is your brother's body now? Prince Xuewuhan asked faintly. Your Highness, my brother went berserk during cultivation. His evil spirit was too strong and he killed innocent people. I had no choice but to put justice before family. His death was very fierce and mournful. He has been buried now. If your Highness and your Highness see it, it will be blasphemy to the 2 distinguished guests. Yun Zhonghai's forehead was sweating, and he didn't dare to raise his head. I want to open the coffin and examine the body. Otherwise, how can my father be convinced? Xuewuhan said coldly. Princess Xuewu didn't speak. She lowered her head and tasted the specialties of the city amongst the clouds. She didn't care about the cause of Yun Zhongjuan's death at all. At this moment, Yi Qinghan stepped into the courtyard in black. The 5 realm army soldiers directly drew their sword. Their aura exploded, and a strong killing intent directly locked onto him. Stop! The leader of the realm army scolded coldly. Yi Qinghan stood on his tiptoes and stood at the gate of the courtyard. He bowed slightly and said, Zhuofeng greets Master, Your Highness and Your Highness. When Yun Zhonghai saw Yi Qinghan coming, he immediately exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and quickly said, Your Highness, this is my disciple, Zhuofeng. He won't harm Your Highness and Your Highness. He's your disciple. Xuewuhan faintly raised his head and looked at Yi Qinghan. He was attracted by the inexplicable aura of a king on his body. He nodded with satisfaction and said indifferently, Not bad. If you train for a few days, it won't be a problem for you to join the realm army. Xuewu finally stopped eating. She raised her head slightly. Her beautiful face made the world lose its color. Her thin lips, big round eyes, and skin as white as jade. When she looked at Yi Qinghan, her eyes couldn't help but flash with a different light. The main reason was that Yi Qinghan's temperament was too eye-catching. Thank you, Your Highness, for your praise. Yi Qinghan was neither servile nor overbearing. He bowed and replied. Then, he turned his gaze to Yun Zhonghai and said respectfully, Master, this disciple has ordered people to bury the city lord's body in the ancestral land and appease the evil spirit. I hope that the city lord can rest in peace. Well done. Although he was possessed, he was still my brother. Yun Zhonghai's eyes were full of sadness. It seemed that he had a very good relationship with Yun Zhongjuan. But Your Highness wants to open the coffin and examine the body. You take him to see it personally. I really can't bear to see my brother's dead appearance. Yun Zhonghai said sadly. Yi Qinghan was slightly startled. He didn't expect this prince to be so well behaved. However, how could he let Xuewuhan see the body? Although there were no clues, it was inevitable that something would go wrong. So, he bowed and said, Master, Your Highness, the city lord has just been buried in his coffin. If you open it now, wouldn't it be too blasphemous to disturb his rest? Xuewuhan stared at Yi Qinghan's eyes. It was as if lightning could penetrate the soul. He stared for a long time without speaking. Yi Qinghan's eyes showed no signs of fear as he looked straight at Xue Wuhan. He didn't seem to have anything to hide. His eyes were as clear as a newborn baby's. Chapter 12:16. The two looked at each other and did not speak. The more Yi Qinghan was unwilling to retreat, the more he expressed that he did not want to blaspheme the undead. He did not have the slightest timidity or shame. After a long time, Xue Wuhan restrained his terrifying light and said faintly, "Yun Zhonghai, you have accepted a good disciple. He has no timidity or shame. It can be seen that the cause of Yun Zhongjuan's death is not strange. Let's forget about opening the coffin and examining the body." "Thank you for your trust, Your Highness. This official thanks you on behalf of my brother." Yun Zhonghai breathed a sigh of relief and quickly bowed back. "Zuofeng, come and sit down. This king has something to ask you." Xue Wuhan beckoned. Xue Wu raised her head and smiled. Her eyes were smiling. Although her temperament was noble, she did not put on any airs. Yi Qinghan, with his usual cold appearance, took a few steps closer and stood in front of the table. He cupped his fists and said, "There is a difference between seniors and juniors. This commoner can stand here. If Your Highness has anything to say, please tell me." "Ah, Yun Zhonghai, you have accepted a good disciple. Not bad, not bad. I like him very much. Let him follow me to the border army, okay?" Xue Wuhan said with relief. "That would be Zuofeng's honor, and also the honor of Cloud City," Yun Zhonghai said quickly. Yi Qinghan was stunned. He did not expect that Xue Wuhan would give him a chance to develop. Although he was surprised, he did not show it. "Zuofeng will naturally obey Your Highness and Master's orders. However, the Genius Academy I have established is still in the beginning stage. It will take some time to finish." Yi Qinghan was neither servile nor overbearing, and his mood did not fluctuate. The more Xue Wuhan and Xue Wu looked at him, the more they liked him. It was inevitable that such a person would make people happy. "Well, I will give you 3 days to settle everything. After 3 days, I will take you to the border," Xue Wuhan said faintly. "Then, this commoner will take his leave." Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and was about to leave. Right at this moment, Xue Wu, who had been silent all this while, suddenly stood up and smiled. "Taoist Zuofeng, can I follow you to the Genius Academy to take a look?" Yi Qinghan had many things to do and naturally didn't want her to follow. However, the other party was a princess and it wasn't good to reject her like this. He respectfully said, "Your Highness, the princess has a noble status and the Genius Academy is filled with a bunch of children. It's inevitable that they would blaspheme Your Highness' golden body. It doesn't matter. I've been in the military for many years, so I don't care about these customs. You can just deal with your own matters. This consort won't disturb you." Xue Wu did not give Yi Qinghan a chance to refuse and said directly, "Let's go. I just want to see the scenery near Cloud City." Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Wuhan with a bitter smile, hoping that he could stop Xue Wu's actions. However, Xue Wuhan smiled and said, "Zuofeng, my sister is not an insensible child. Take her for a stroll. I'll pick her up tonight." Yi Qinghan was helpless and could only take Xue Wu and leave. Xue Wu was wearing a milky white dress. Coupled with her appearance, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was an outstanding beauty. However, Yi Qinghan was sitting on pins and needles, walking on burning coals. This was because he had many things to complete within 3 days. Being followed by this girl, he had no choice but to give up on many things. For example, going to ask Xin Lang to go to the Great Wasteland domain. This matter had no choice but to stop. Xue Wu followed Yi Qinghan. Seeing that he didn't say a word, she had no choice but to take the initiative to ask, "Are you someone from Cloud City?" "Yes, Your Highness the Princess." Yi Qinghan was a man of few words. He quickened his pace and walked towards the city gate. Seeing Yi Qinghan being so cold, Shui Wu couldn't help but curl her lip. Even a princess wasn't cold. She didn't understand why this guy was so cold. Where are your parents? This time, you will be going with your brother for a long time. Shouldn't you go and say goodbye to your parents first? Shui Wu asked again. Orphan. Yi Qinghan replied again. Shui Wu's expression froze. Then, she said apologetically, Sorry, I don't know. Although Shui Wu's status was respected, she didn't seem to have any heirs. Perhaps it was because she had lived in the military camp for too long. She was extremely disgusted with those who fawned over her in every possible way. However, she didn't have any immunity to Yi Qinghan, who ignored her. Instead, she took the initiative to understand him. Yi Qinghan wasn't interested in paying attention to her. He directly pulled out the divine bird. The divine bird looked confused. It looked down and immediately stood up. It said in a strange voice, Yo, this chick is so cute. She's so beautiful. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He still hoped that it would help to talk nonsense and attract Shui Wu's attention so that she wouldn't stare at him. However, this guy ridiculed him without asking about the other party's identity. He hurriedly scolded, This is the princess of the Snow Country's divine realm. Don't be rude. Hee, what a cute parrot. Not only was Shui Wu not angry, she giggled instead. Like an oriole leaving the valley, the sound of nature bloomed. Yi Qinghan had goosebumps when he heard it. Hee, I think so too. However, I'm not a parrot. You can call me Divine Bird or the Great Divine Bird. The Divine Bird replied smugly. Shui Wu, however, the princess is even cuter and very beautiful. You can be friends with this Divine Bird. This Divine Bird is very cautious when making friends. I'm not interested in those who aren't beautiful. Those who can become friends are all of the best quality. It's very obvious that the Honorable Princess is the most beautiful of the best quality women. The Divine Bird took the opportunity to flatter. Shui Wu didn't look very old. She was rarely born and had very little life experience. Her playful heart was very strong. After being praised by the Divine Bird in such an unconventional way, she immediately smiled like a flower. She stretched out her 5 slender fingers and let the Divine Bird jump over. The Divine Bird forgot about its friends when it saw a girl and abandoned Yi Qinghan without hesitation. After leaving the city amongst the clouds, Yi Qinghan saw that Shui Wu's attention wasn't on him. He immediately left this place and went straight to the Genius Academy. When Shui Wu saw Yi Qinghan leave, she let go of her face and asked curiously, Divine Bird, why is your master so cold? Sigh, my master's talent has been amazing since he was young. He's handsome to the point that he doesn't have any friends. He's also righteous. In the end, he offended the nobles and his entire clan was exterminated. Only he escaped. All these years, he bitterly cultivated secret techniques just to take revenge. Therefore, after so many years, he's still alone. He doesn't even have a wife, let alone a concubine. The Divine Bird talked nonsense. It was simply a tool to pick up girls. How could Shui Wu understand the Divine Bird? She was stunned by such a shocking nonsense. She sympathized with Yi Qinghan. Master can only use cold to disguise himself. In fact, deep in his heart, he yearns for love and a family. Therefore, he likes children very much. He wants to help the poor geniuses have a cultivation environment. Therefore, he established the Genius Academy. Unfortunately, he wrapped himself up too tightly. You don't understand him. I don't blame you. The Divine Bird seriously talked nonsense. The more Shui Wu listened, the more upset she felt. She secretly said, So I've wronged him. Let's go to the Genius Academy. Shui Wu's expression was solemn. She decided to help Yi Qinghan. Chapter 12-17. Yi Qinghan quickly arrived at the Genius Academy. After finding Shen Lang, he quickly instructed, Tell Lady 13 and Yun Zhonghai that everything will be carried out according to the original plan. All resources will be used on the Genius Academy. If anyone dares to mess around, I will definitely kill them when I return. Yes, boss. Xin Lang quickly replied. In the future, you will be in charge of the Genius Academy. Recently, the prince and princess are both here. You must not give yourself away. Yi Qinghan carefully instructed and whispered, "You can leave now. The princess will be here soon." After Xin Lang left, Yi Qinghan personally oversaw the Genius Academy. He was secretly thinking about how to clean up this mess. Who should be the best person to manage the Cloud City? The Genius Academy had already started the examination. A few talented children had appeared, and Yi Qinghan had been silently paying attention. At this time, Xue Wu was watching from the outside. She discovered that most of the children were indeed from poor villages and strongholds. The parents who came to accompany the examination had a comfortable seat and table. There were enough spirit fruit. Although the value wasn't much, it was enough to see Yi Qinghan's effort. Xue Wu's arrival attracted everyone's attention. Countless people were dumbstruck. A large group of youths took the initiative to gather around her. Get lost. You dare to take advantage of the princess? This divine bird will burn you all. The divine bird stood on Xue Wu's shoulder. Its feathers were spread open, and its thieving eyes were wide open. It was as if it was announcing its sovereignty. What? Princess? Some of the patriarchs of the large clans were stunned. They looked at Xue Wu and her waist belt. Her temperament was outstanding. It was the royal attire. That's right. She is the world's #1 beauty, Princess Xue Wu. Get out of my way. The divine bird became the flower guardian. In its eyes, as long as it was useful, it would be the world's #1 beauty. Even if it was the world's #1 beauty, it wouldn't be a little girl who was still wet behind the ears. Although she was indeed very beautiful. Greetings to the princess. Tens of thousands of people were shocked. Including the patriarchs of the powerful clans and sect masters, they all knelt down. The imperial family of the Snow Empire couldn't be blasphemed. It was just like Yi Qinghan of the Great Wasteland domain. There was no need for restrictions. The reverence of this group of people came from their bones and soul. Get up. There's no need to salute. I don't have an official position. Xue Wu hurriedly mobilized the ice spirit to help everyone up. Although Xue Wu didn't have an official position, she was deeply doted on. She was one of the most favored princesses of the Realm Lord. Her status was very high. She supported the 19th Prince Xue Wuhan to be bestowed the title of Emperor in the future. He would become the Emperor of the Snow Empire's divine dynasty, second only to the Realm Lord. Once Xue Wuhan ascended the throne, she would definitely be the first princess. There was only one Realm Lord in the divine realm of the Snow Empire. He did not care about the affairs of the mortal world and left everything to the Emperor of the royal family to manage. However, he would come out of seclusion almost every 10 years to accept the worship of the royal family's princes and princesses. Occasionally, he would choose those who had good talent or were pleasing to the eye and teach them some cultivation technique. These favored princesses and princes would become the backbone of the emperor, and they would be the most favored. In the future, when the emperor abdicated and tried to break through, the position of emperor would be chosen from these favored princes. These favored princes were still fine, but the favored princesses were more dangerous. They were the targets that the princes tried to rope in. Once they couldn't rope them in, they would definitely not let them help others. Therefore, Xue Wu had always followed Xue Wuhan. They were more like blood-related siblings. She would never leave his side for more than 100 miles. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Wu from afar. Although the examination was interrupted, he didn't stop her from appearing. In his heart, he also understood that it wasn't that simple to condense these people into his own people. The majesty of the royal family was too strong. Sometimes, it would exceed the power of the restrictions. Faith would make them not hesitate to fight to the death for the royal family. You guys continue the examination. Don't worry about me. Shui Wu hurriedly came to Yi Qinghan's side and said in a crisp voice. Yi Qinghan looked at everyone coldly and said in a low voice, "Continue the examination." Shui Wu thought that she had disturbed the examination process and made him angry. She couldn't help but wittily stick out her tongue and shrink her head back. Her appearance was somewhat childish and cute. "Princess, please don't take offense. They are all a group of children. People from the countryside will blaspheme the princess. Princess, please go to the courtyard to rest." Yi Qinghan said calmly, "I need to finish all the examinations before I can hand them over to the 3 deans. Only then will I have time to walk around with the princess." "It's okay. I'll walk around. You do what you need to do." Shui Wu hurriedly waved her hand and left everyone's line of sight. Yi Qinghan called the 3 vice deans. One of them was a grand elder of Monarch Mountain, Di Tianke. His strength was already not inferior to the mountain lord of Monarch Mountain. The other was a clan elder of Sky Dragon Stronghold. He had lived for a long time and was also a legendary figure. The spiritual quality he used was a fire attribute spiritual quality. It was very rare. He was respected as the Venerable Fire Dragon. The other one was introduced by Ant 13. He had an even rarer wood attribute spiritual quality. He was proficient in life and soul. His cultivation wasn't bad. He was a middle-aged man called Li Quebec. He was proficient in the Li sword technique and was very powerful. "Seniors, I will be following the prince to the border army. I will need some time before I can return. I will leave this huge genius academy to the 3 of you. I hope that the 3 of you can raise these children as your own. Don't mistreat them because of their family background." Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. "Deans love the people like their own children. This is a great fortune for the people of Cloud amongst city. This old man will definitely not lose face for you." Di Tianke immediately said. Although Yi Qinghan had placed restrictions on the 3 experts, Yi Qinghan did not mistreat them. Furthermore, he gave each of them a cultivation technique suitable for them. These secret techniques were all obtained from Cloud amongst Lord's Iron Tower. Their levels were not low, and they could be cultivated to the paramount god realm. It was just that it required luck. Therefore, the 3 experts were very grateful. They had already forgotten about the restrictions in their sea of consciousness. They felt that as long as they didn't mistreat Yi Qinghan, there was no difference whether the restrictions were there or not. Many thanks for the 3 seniors' understanding. As for the resources that seniors need, feel free to ask the City Lord and Lady 13. I believe that they will not be stingy." Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. "Yes, milord. I also wish that milord will rise up in the border army." Li Ke cupped his fists and said. Yi Qinghan smiled. How could a sparrow or a swallow know the ambition of a swan? His goal was clearly not to develop in the border army, but to control a group of the border army. He could even open up a passage to another world and enter another world to plant his power there. Suddenly, Yi Qinghan's expression changed. He looked into the distance. 10 miles away, Shui Wu was frozen. A qi energy pierced through the galaxy. The ruthless sword qi carried a vast killing intent and pierced through a mountain peak, forcing Shui Wu to flee in a sorry state. The divine bird screeched. It had encountered the most dangerous situation. Yi Qinghan was shocked. With a stomp, he shattered the rock layer in the academy. Numerous afterimages pulled out a tangible figure in the void. Boom! The bracelet that Zhongquang had turned into a pair of gloves halfway. He punched out heavily and flames burned 100 miles. In an instant, he appeared in front of Shui Wu and punched her sharp sword. Chapter 12-18. Boom! Yi Qinghan finally managed to block the sword in the nick of time. If he had been any slower, the sword would have pierced through Nihility's body. Whoosh! Flames soared into the sky, and the energy rippled through the void. Yi Qinghan exerted force at his waist and sent the opponent flying. However, he lost control in his haste and flew backward. With a side flip, he pulled Xue Wu into his arms and threw her a few thousand meters away. Boom! Whoosh! 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 Yi Qinghan used his body as a cushion, and a deep pit was created in the ground as he slid several hundred meters away. Whoosh! The opponent was as fast as lightning. He somersaulted in the air and shattered the void with the tip of his feet. He arrived in front of Yi Qinghan and used a sword to topple a city. Get out of the way! Yi Qinghan swung his hand and flung Xue Wu away. He used the force to bounce back, and the sword energy slashed through the middle. The gully was deep and extended dozens of miles away. This person's cultivation was extremely high. He was definitely a top expert among the giant god limit. He was only a thin layer away from the supreme god. His attack was a killing move. With Yi Qinghan's cultivation, it was still difficult for him to dodge unless he used all his strength. However, that was obviously impossible. Yi Qinghan rolled on the ground continuously. He supported himself with one hand and jumped up. He saw that the person did not attack him and instead continued to attack Xue Wu. Xue Wu was only at the peak of the giant god level. There was a difference of a small realm, but the difference in strength was thousands of miles. He caught up in an instant. Boom! The force rose from the ground, and the fist came from the heart. Yi Qinghan's feet crushed the ground, and his body was distorted. This fist carried the power to shatter the sky and attacked the opponent's right waist. As long as he dared to kill Xue Wu, Yi Qinghan's fist would be enough to penetrate his body. The opponent was dressed in black, and his face was covered by a black veil. His sword was like a rainbow. At this critical moment, he gave up on killing Xue Wu and stabbed behind his waist. Whoosh! A wisp of sword gleam struck the side of Yi Qinghan's face. The sword aura caused his facial muscles to change. Yi Qinghan twisted his body to the side and narrowly avoided the fatal blow. His opponent was too strong and he was too restricted. He could not use the Great Wilderness Tao Sutra or the Great Wilderness Tao Body. He could only rely on pure technique. Bang! Ding! Yi Qinghan flicked his finger and struck the tip of the divine sword. The divine sword bent and was almost broken by this strike. The body of the sword trembled and hummed. Boom! The sword chi missed its target and crashed into a mountain peak in the distance. The mountain peak exploded, sending sand and rocks flying everywhere. Yi Qinghan's body was less than 10 centimeters above the ground. He spun in a circle and stabilized his body. His right leg kicked high into the air and hit the man's neck. Boom! The assailant was sent flying and lost control of his body. Yi Qinghan's body was hanging upside down. He continuously swung his legs and kicked Yi Qinghan's chest. Boom! The assailant's cultivation and combat strength were definitely not weak. After suffering a few heavy blows, he mobilized his divine power and punched Yi Qinghan's chest. The two separated again. Yi Qinghan crashed backward and fell in front of Xue Wu. "You're courting death." Whoosh! The assailant was furious. He was about to complete his mission, but he did not expect Yi Qinghan to ruin it. He directly mobilized his majestic ice-type spiritual essence. The surrounding temperature dropped to the limit and froze one's soul. Frost style. Whoosh! A sword struck. The sword gleam brought along a cold air that froze the surroundings and restricted one's soul. They could only watch helplessly as the sword rainbow attacked the two of them. Yi Qinghan's toes moved and drew a yin and yang diagram. He waved his hands and flames soared into the sky. The terrifying flames dispersed the frost. Boom! 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 The two of them charged together. Their attacks caused the sky to fall and the earth to rend. In an instant they took one's life. The assailant was extremely anxious. Now, he could only use his strongest attack to kill Yi Qinghan and then kill Xue Wu. Otherwise, when Xue Wuheng and the border army arrived, he would not have another chance. Whoosh, whoosh. Every sword took one's life, forcing Yi Qinghan to retreat step by step. There were a few times when he almost used a fatal technique subconsciously. The two of them both used a method of mutual destruction. One wanted to kill and the other wanted to save. Yi Qinghan could not let this person kill Xue Wu in the territory of the city amongst the clouds. Otherwise, the supreme expert of the Snow Country's god dynasty would definitely appear. At that time, his efforts would be in vain and his identity would even be exposed. In the blink of an eye, only 3 breaths of time had passed. Xue Wuheng and the border army had not reacted yet. The two of them had already attacked over 1,000 times. The ground collapsed and sword marks were everywhere. The Genius Academy in the distance was stunned. Even the 3 deans could not withstand such an attack, let alone participate in the battle. However, the 3 deans still rushed over and blocked in front of Xue Wu as they kept retreating. The assailants saw that he no longer had a chance because 6 figures had already rushed out from the city. It was Xue Wuheng and the 5 border army experts. Therefore, he had the intention to retreat. "Brat, you spoiled my plans. I will definitely kill you in the future." The assailant's voice was hoarse. It was obvious that he had been dealt with. His hand trembled and his sword split into 1,000 sword shadows, attacking Yi Qinghan. He wanted to take the opportunity to leave. Yi Qinghan's feet stepped on the ground. Borrowing the power of heaven and earth, he gathered it in his body and punched out from behind his waist. The tip of his feet crushed mountains and rivers. His body was like a divine sword. Fire dragon goes out of the sea, strength breaks the clouds. Boom. Yi Qinghan was already unwilling to let this person retreat. His divine power poured out. The divine power of fire turned into a fire attribute spirit and attacked the assailant with unstoppable divine power. Boom. Yi Qinghan's left hand moved and grabbed the divine sword. His defense exploded and his flesh was badly mangled. However, this punch had the power to collapse the heavens and instantly hit the assailant's chest. Bang! Boom! The assailant's body was torn into pieces. His chest was badly mangled. The flesh on his body was almost destroyed by this punch. The broken body sped backward, and even the sword left his hand. Puff! The assailant coughed out blood and roared. He hated Yi Qinghan to the bone and turned to escape. Die! Yi Qinghan took the divine sword with his right hand and erased the assailant's divine sense. He threw it fiercely. The divine sword pierced through the void and directly pierced the assailant's head, nailing him to a mountain peak. The powerful assailant's soul was destroyed on the spot. His corpse swayed on the mountain peak. It was very miserable. At this time, Xue Wuhen and the border army had just arrived. Although it had only taken less than 100 breaths of time from the time Xue Wu was attacked to the end, if it wasn't for Yi Qinghan, Xue Wu would have lost 10 lives. Xue Wuhen looked at the messy battlefield. His face was extremely ugly. He didn't expect that someone would be so daring to attack and kill the imperial princess in broad daylight. At this moment, he looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. He didn't expect that it was him who killed the assailant. Yi Qinghan's black hair fluttered. As soon as his body landed, the flames on his body dissipated. Blood flowed from his left hand. There were at least 30 sword wounds on his body. He looked very miserable. Xue Wu couldn't believe it. Her eyes were wide open. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan's strength to be so terrifying. In just 100 breaths of time, he killed a top giant god expert who was only a small step away from entering the supreme god realm. Looking at Yi Qinghan's back and dripping blood, although there was shock in her eyes, there was more gratitude. She couldn't imagine that without Yi Qinghan's sudden appearance, she would be a corpse now. Thank you. Xue Wu was touched by Yi Qinghan's desperate rescue. Chapter 12:19. Thank you. Shui Wu's voice was slightly trembling. She was just half a step away from falling into hell. Now, she was unable to regain her senses. Zuofeng, thank you very much. I will remember this kindness in my heart, Shui Wuhan said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan slowly turned around. There were at least dozens of wounds on his chest. It could be seen that he paid a huge price to kill the opponent. Drip, blood flowed. Yi Qinghan's face was extremely pale. His body was a little light. Prince and princess are too polite. This is what I should do. The honorable princess is near the Genius Academy in Cloud City. If you were killed, then it would be my negligence. Now that you are frightened, I, Zuofeng, feel guilty. Yi Qinghan said in a dignified voice. Don't say such words. I am very grateful that you can save Shui Wu. However, I don't have any fire-type healing panacea. You should quickly return to the academy to heal. We will talk after you recover, Shui Wuhan quickly said. Shui Wu personally went forward to support Yi Qinghan. However, he waved his hand and avoided her. He whispered, the dirty blood is too dirty. It will inevitably stain the princess's body. I can stand firm. Shui Wu looked at Yi Qinghan's unapproachable appearance. She felt even more distressed. She thought that what the divine bird said was true. At this moment, she felt a little sad. I just want to know which force is the attacker from. Will the person behind him implicate the group of kids in the Genius Academy? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. Shui Wuhan frowned. He didn't expect that Yi Qinghan didn't care about his own injuries. Instead, he cared about the group of kids. How could his temperament be bad? His trust in Yi Qinghan increased by 70 to 80%. I am not sure which force it is from. However, this is an assassin. He was paid to eliminate the disaster. If an assassin is killed, there shouldn't be any revenge. Now, the biggest assassin forces are heaven and hell. There are also some scattered small forces. Their leaders can also do this. Shui Wuhan thought for a moment and said faintly. However, looking at his expression, he should be hiding some information. Other organizations wouldn't retaliate, but Hell and Heaven, the two major assassin organizations, would likely retaliate after losing such a powerful member. Yi Qinghan nodded and passed by Shui Wu indifferently, stirring up a cool breeze that lifted his black hair and brushed past Shui Wu's face. The smell of blood was strong, and his desolate back gradually went further and further away. Shui Wu turned her head and looked at Yi Qinghan's back as he left. It was as if she saw a world full of desolation, filled with sorrow and vicissitudes of life, as if she had experienced endless pain and torture. At this moment, the tip of her nose was sour, and her tears actually flowed out uncontrollably. Perhaps it was because she felt too wronged, because Yi Qinghan simply ignored her. Shui Wuhan looked at Yi Qinghan's departing figure and his heart palpitated. He then looked at Shui Wu and knew that her heart was relatively soft, but she would not cry. He asked, Little Wu, what's wrong? Big brother, I'm so sad. Shui Wu squatted on the ground and cried bitterly, as if she had suffered a great grievance. It's okay. In the future, I will let the border army follow you. No one will have the chance to assassinate you again. Shui Wuhan said with heartache. Shui Wu shook her head fiercely. She stared at Shui Wuhan with her watery eyes and said with grievance, It's not because of the assassination. It's because of him. Looking at his back makes me feel so sad. The corner of Shui Wuhan's mouth twitched. Looking at Yi Qinghan's back, it was indeed somewhat desolate. It was completely incomparable to his youth. He was like an old monster who had lived for millions of years. Xing Jun, investigate the background of the assassin. If it's a small force, directly uproot it. Shui Wuhan wanted to divert Shui Wu's gaze and said to one of the border army experts. Yes. A vigorous young expert bowed and retreated, taking away the assassin's corpse. Shui Wuhan brought Shui Wu back to the city amongst the clouds. Hearing Shui Wu talk about Yi Qinghan's identity, She foolishly believed the words of the divine bird, and said everything. Xue Wuhan didn't send people to investigate Yi Qinghan's identity mainly because he didn't want to arouse his disgust. If the identity was real, once the investigation was done, Yi Qinghan would definitely be disgusted, and it would affect their relationship. Moreover, he trusted Yi Qinghan more from the bottom of his heart. Little Wu, the assassin this time might be from heaven. They might take revenge on Genius Academy. I have to leave this place quickly. Otherwise, the few of us won't be able to block their attack. Xue Wuhan said in a deep voice. Then what about Suofeng? Xue Wu quickly asked. Take him away. We can't stay here any longer. This time, it must be Old Four who hired someone to kill you. With Old Four's personality, he probably won't give up until he achieves his goal. The next time he attacks, he might attack me as well. Xue Wuhan was expressionless. His wise eyes looked out of the window and said hoarsely, The city amongst the clouds is the weakest city. It doesn't even have a supreme god, and its defense is the weakest. As long as they send a supreme god and 3 to 5 giant gods, we won't be able to escape. Then when are we leaving? Xue Wu was a little panicked. The identity of the royal family wasn't omnipotent. Many forces respected the realm lord, but they scoffed at the identity of the royal family. This was because many forces had the royal bloodline. Killing a prince wasn't considered unpardonable to them. We're leaving tonight, Xue Wuhan said without hesitation. However, I'm now considering how to persuade Suofeng to leave with us. If he knows the truth, I'm afraid he'll give up on traveling with us because of Genius Academy. Then, why did you send Xing Jun away? Xue Wu asked curiously. Xue Wuhan shook his head and sighed that Xue Wu was still a little naive. He replied softly, On the surface, I sent him to investigate the identity of the assassin. In fact, I sent him to mobilize the realm army to support us. What do you think I'll gain by uprooting a small force for revenge? The two were silent. However, they had forgotten about the divine bird on Xue Wu's shoulder. When the divine bird heard that the city amongst the clouds was in danger, it immediately trembled. Just say that the army has urgent matters and needs to rush. You're also afraid of danger on the road. Ask him to help protect the beautiful princess Xue Wu. He definitely won't let anyone bully the princess. Naturally, he'll follow you, the divine bird said faintly. Xue Wuhan was stunned. He looked at the divine bird on Xue Wu's shoulder. He didn't expect a little bird to have such high intelligence. Xue Wu was instantly delighted. She felt that the plan was feasible. 2 people and a bird quickly came to Genius Academy. Yi Qinghan was mobilizing his divine power to heal his injuries. His wounds were healing quickly. In just half a day, it was as if he wasn't injured at all. The sky gradually darkened. Xue Wuhan looked at Yi Qinghan's recovery and couldn't help but be stunned. What a strong recovery ability! Xue Wuhan exclaimed. I've grasped a portion of the wood attribute spirit, so my physique is a little special. Yi Qinghan smiled. Xue Wu looked at the faint smile on Yi Qinghan's lips. She was instantly infatuated. She always felt that his smile was filled with sorrow. Suofeng, since you've recovered, then we'll set off now. I'm worried that the other party will still attack us siblings. If we stay now, we'll only harm the city amongst the clouds. After all, there are no experts in the city amongst the clouds. As for Genius Academy, I'll let Yunhai mobilize the city guards to protect it. No matter which assassin force, they won't dare to attack the city and the city guards without restraint. So you don't have to worry, Xue Wuhan said solemnly. Xue Wuhan's words were probing. If Yi Qinghan didn't care about the danger and took the initiative to follow and protect, then he could completely believe it. Yi Qinghan didn't disappoint him. He cupped his fist and said, Then I'll follow you to the border army camp. After all, one more person means one more power. It's too dangerous for you to act alone. Chapter 12:20. That night, Yi Qinghan mobilized the city guards to oversee the Genius Academy, then left the city amongst the clouds with Xue Wuheng and Xue Wu. There were many places that didn't have gates, or at least weren't connected to each other. A small place like the city amongst the clouds didn't even have a long-distance teleportation array. The 7 of them had pretty good cultivations, and their speed was extremely fast. They shuttled through the vast mountains and rivers, but they didn't know that their every move was being watched by someone else. In the holy city of the Snow Empire, the 4th prince had already learned that his first mission had failed, and that it had been ruined by a random brat. Since we've failed, we'll bury them all in the wilderness. The 4th prince's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and they were filled with haze. His soul-stealing eyes were frightening. Send an emissary from hell. The price will be double the market price. The 4th prince said coldly. I want Xue Wuheng Xue Wu, and that bastard who ruined my plans to die without a burial place. Yes. A black figure left quietly. The temperature in the courtyard was enough to freeze a giant god to death. Only the cold plum blossoms were blooming. Hell wasn't the reincarnation hell of the mortal world. It was the largest assassination organization, and it was on par with heaven. There were 18 emissaries in hell, which meant that there were 18 paramount gods. Hell didn't just have 18 emissaries. There was also the Lord of Hell, a peak paramount god on par with Huang Peng. He had once fought alongside the Realm Lord, and even the Realm Lord of the Snow Empire had to give him some face and call him brother. There were 3 emissaries under the Lord of Hell, and they were all peak paramount gods. They were ranked above the emissaries, and this was the full strength of Hell. Heaven and Hell were on par with each other. The only difference was that Heaven's experts used the light element, while Hell's experts used the vicious darkness element. Heaven and Hell coexisted, and they were recognized by the Realm Lord. As long as they didn't assassinate the Emperor of the Empire or trample on the danger of the imperial family, killing the princes wasn't a big deal. Both Hell and Heaven's headquarters were set up outside the Holy City, but the 2 High Lords weren't there. They had been missing for a long time, perhaps in search of the Realm Lord's Tao. A powerful emissary walked out of Hell. He was ranked 16th among the emissaries, and his code name was 16. He didn't even have a name. 16 was wearing black clothes. He didn't even wear a mask. His face was emotionless as if he was dead. He took the territory in trance and headed to Northwest City. The space gate traveled back in time, and the Milky Way hung upside down. The next morning, they arrived at the Northwest City. They were already very far away from the Saint City. Great Emissary Number 16 received the news from the message talisman and rushed towards the southeast to welcome Yi Qinghan and the others. The distance between the 2 sides was like a dozen or so large cities. It seemed that they might not meet, but if Xue Wuhan wanted to return to the border army barracks, he would have to pass through Single Gorge. This place was rugged and precipitous, and the cold air above sealed the unparalleled experts. Not even the overgods dared to recklessly charge in. The 16th Great Emissary's destination was the Single File Gorge. His speed was extremely fast, and he hoped to reach the Single File Gorge before Xue Wuhan. Yi Qinghan and the others moved quickly, hoping to cross the Single File Gorge before the other side could react. Along the way, the major divisions of Hell sent experts to harass and interfere with the speed of Yi Qinghan and the others. They were extremely cautious along the way. From time to time, someone would use the border army's divine crossbows to shoot arrows. Even Xue Wuhan had to be careful. The power of those divine crossbows was too great. This is called the Realm Opening Crossbow. It's the most powerful divine crossbow in the border army. Only experts above the rank of Centurion can be equipped with it. Take one, and as long as you inject spiritual essence into it, it will become an indestructible crossbow. Its range is 300 li. As long as it pierces through its body, the giant god will be severely injured. Xue Wuhan and the others sat in a valley. The past few days of rushing had made him extremely tired. His trust in Yi Qinghan increased a bit, and he sent a powerful realm-opening crossbow to Yi Qinghan. This is a moon-ranked spiritual stone. Put it in the energy slot and it can save you more than 50% of your strength. A moon-ranked spiritual stone can support you to fire 3,000 arrows in a row. Xue Wuhan immediately introduced. The moon-ranked spiritual stone was like the milky white moon. It radiated divine light and contained boundless spiritual essence. It was pure, vast, and priceless. This kind of thing had always been in the hands of the paramount gods. Some princes and special princes would have some. Yi Qinghan held the moon-ranked spiritual stone and took a deep breath. He put the spiritual stone into the energy slot and held the crossbow with both hands. His eyes were cold and fierce, like the eyes of a wolf, scanning the surroundings. The Realm Lord's spiritual sense silently traversed 1,000 li and discovered that there were 4 or 5 peak giant god experts with crossbows waiting for them 800 li ahead. Of course, Yi Qinghan didn't say anything. 800 kilometers was a short distance for a minor world, but for places like the Snowy Kingdom and the God World, the divine sense of a paramount god could only detect living things within a range of 250 kilometers. Beyond that, even a peak paramount god would find nothing but a blurry image in their sea of consciousness. Let's continue forward. After resting for about an hour, Xue Wuhan said in a deep voice, Su Zilong, the 4 of you protect Xue Wu. Zuofeng and I will walk in front. Su Zilong and the others had their backs to Xue Wu and formed a semicircle, protecting Xue Wu. They held the crossbows in their hands and carried the long spears and crossbows on their back. They were protected by military armor and could use their lives to protect Xue Wu at any time. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The group moved quickly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like torches. He gently shook his bracelet and sensed the structure of the crossbow. He wanted to build an even stronger crossbow that could kill experts from 500 li or even 1,000 li away. 800 li was already beyond the range of their spiritual sense. However, their speed was very fast. After an incense stick's worth of time, they arrived. In front of them was a lush forest and a short mountain peak. The leaves above covered the sky and were luxuriant. Hundreds of people might not be able to find them if they hid there. Just outside the mountain range, Yi Qinghan stopped and frowned. He whispered, "Wait a moment." After saying that, Yi Qinghan raised the crossbow and locked his spiritual sense on an assassin. Hua! Divine power poured out, forming a sharp divine crossbow arrow. With one arrow, it pierced through countless withered branches and rotten leaves, destroying mountain rocks. It directly pierced through the body of an assassin, piercing through his head. The divine crossbow arrow crashed into a tall mountain, causing it to explode into pieces. Puff! The remaining 3 people were swept away by the qi and blood. They fell from the branches and coughed up blood. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The 4 border army soldiers and Xue Wuhan attacked at the same time. The crossbow arrows flew and directly pierced through the bodies of the 3 people. Blood filled the sky. Xue Wuhan was more and more surprised as he walked. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan's spiritual sense to be so powerful. The border army and him, a border army chiliarch, couldn't find the assassin, but he found it from dozens of li away. It was unbelievable. Yi Qinghan shrugged and said faintly, "I have the wood spiritual space. These assassins hiding in the bushes are just standing in front of me naked. They are simply looking for death." Chapter 12:21. 3 spiritual bodies. This was considered extremely rare. One was fire, one was ice, and one was wood. 2 for attack and 1 for defense. It was a perfect combination. Xue Wu's eyes were filled with little stars. She felt that Yi Qinghan was simply the best in the world. Not only was his battle power high, his talent was good, and he was also handsome, hesitant, experienced, and mature. There seemed to be no one more perfect than him in the world. Now, his position had already surpassed her brother Shwewuhen. Shwewuhen shrugged. He felt that his position in his sister's heart had been surpassed. There was a sour feeling in his heart. However, he cherished and cherished talent. At this moment, he felt that cultivating Yi Qinghan to be his right hand was a good choice. I'm curious why this group of people keeps pestering us. They know that they are no match for us. Shwewuhen frowned. He felt that something was wrong. The 4 border army soldiers also felt that it was a bit inconceivable. Hell, such a big organization shouldn't make such a serious mistake. They also shouldn't treat the branch forces like puppets and send them to their deaths. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. He then looked back at the road and said hoarsely, "They are stalling for time and holding us back. Either they have people chasing us from behind, or they have people rushing to the front to wait for us." After Yi Qinghan's reminder, Shwewuhen was shocked. He blurted out, "Line Gorge Canyon. That is the only way to the border army camp. There is no other way. Then we have to cross it before they reach Line Gorge. Otherwise, we can only fight head-on." Yi Qinghan frowned. He knew that the other side would obviously send out the Supreme God. He couldn't use the power of the Great Wilderness, and it was impossible to use the realm of the Great Wilderness. Fighting the Supreme God was no different than courting death. "Let's go. We have to reach Line Gorge before the other side at all costs." Shwewuhen immediately decided and rushed out. Yi Qinghan's divine sense covered 1,000 miles. The bracelet was constantly trembling, simulating the creation of a powerful crossbow. Along the way, everyone was tense and didn't notice that the bracelet on his hand was constantly changing shape. Shwewu intentionally or unintentionally stared at Yi Qinghan's back, but didn't pay attention to the bracelet in front of him. Xiao xiao xiao, the 7 of them were as fast as lightning. They were still 2 big cities away from Single File Gorge. They definitely could not enter the city now. If they were delayed, they would definitely arrive at Single File Gorge after the other party. The territory of the 2 big cities was equivalent to the linear distance of 4 or 5 Chaos Realms. The speed of the 7 giant gods was extremely fast, and the border army was the best among the same level, so it would not be bad. The worst was Shwewu. In the end, Yi Qinghan and Shwewuhen joined forces to pull her and madly rushed into the distance, pulling the border army more than 10 miles away. Although Yi Qinghan did not use his maximum speed, it was enough to deal with Shwewuhen. The 2 of them ran side by side. Shwewuhen's dress fluttered in the wind. She could only turn her head, unable to open her eyes. Assassins kept appearing along the way, interrupting their journey. After a few fights and wasting some time, the border army finally arrived from behind. However, this speed was much faster than before, so it only tired Yi Qinghan and Shwewuhen. Shwewuhen was secretly glad that Yi Qinghan had followed them. Otherwise, their speed would have been greatly reduced. Let's continue forward. The 7 of them were silent along the way. They chased each other as fast as lightning. After a day and a night, Shwewuhen could not keep up with Yi Qinghan's rhythm. However, at this time, Yi Qinghan did not care about hiding anything. With 3 types of spiritual quality, naturally, there would be more spiritual quality space and more spiritual quality. It was natural that their endurance would be exaggerated. "I'll carry Princess Shwewu. You can lighten the burden." Yi Qinghan was expressionless as he cupped his fists and said, "Princess, please don't blame me for the crime of blasphemy. Why are you still talking about etiquette at this time? These territories are all the 4th prince's. We can't delay." Shwewuhen swallowed a holy elixir, and his strength was quickly recovering. In order to survive, any etiquette could be thrown away. Shwewu was lying on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. The soft clothes were as if they were not there. It was more like a magnanimous contrast. Her little heart was beating wildly. She seemed to have forgotten the danger, and began to let her imagination run wild. Yi Qinghan could also feel the pair of meatballs constantly jumping on his back. However, he would not be so infatuated to forget the danger. His toes were almost off the ground as he rushed into the distance. Xue Wuhan followed closely behind, gradually pulling the border army further away. However, there was no chance to help them now. There was still a distance of one city to Lion Gorge. Time was life. Charge through Lion Gorge. The wind blew into their ears, and their black hair fluttered like steel needles piercing the back. Xue Wu could only hug Yi Qinghan tightly, and did not dare to move at all. After running wildly for another day, Lion Gorge was close at hand. The distance between them and the border army had been completely widened. At this moment, Xue Wuhan stopped. He was hesitating whether to move forward or not. After all, he could not detect whether there was a supreme god blocking them in Lion Gorge 800 miles away. Yi Qinghan's consciousness swept across Lion Gorge. There was no supreme god, so he said firmly, "It's safe ahead. Let's continue forward." Regarding Yi Qinghan's unusual firmness, Xue Wuhan hesitated for a moment and followed. Xiu xiu xiu, the two crossed the mountains and rushed down Lion Gorge. The top of Lion Gorge was full of frost. The cold air almost froze the space. There was no breath of life above Lion Gorge. Even supreme gods would be frostbitten. Some powerful ice-type creatures were born from the cold air. They could actually travel freely in the sky. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan rushed to the bottom of Lion Gorge with Xue Wu. The long and narrow passage was gloomy and terrifying. The temperature below was also extremely low. There was very little life. It was like a barren desert. The three of them quickly entered Lion Gorge. Number 16 was rushing towards Lion Gorge from Northwest City. He was only one city away from here. To a supreme god, this distance was nothing. It would take at most half an hour. Dong dong dong. Xue Wuhan's heartbeat sped up. He was exhausted, but the blade was hanging over his head. If he did not fight, he would die. He had to race against time. After crossing Lion Gorge, he could fly freely. West of Northwest City was the territory of the border army. Yi Qinghan's expression suddenly changed. He could sense that a supreme god's aura was rapidly approaching. He couldn't care about anything else. He carried Xue Wu on his back and dragged Xue Wuhan as he flew through the narrow mountain crevices. Whoosh, screech. The astral wind collided in the passage. The sound was extremely ear-piercing and mournful. It was as if a demon had appeared. Boom. Finally, after a short 5 breaths, Yi Qinghan brought the two of them to the other side of Lion Gorge. He pulled the two of them and rushed into another mountain range. Inform the border army to retreat. Yi Qinghan quickly growled. He hoped that the direction of the border army's escape would disturb the supreme god's pursuit. Chapter 12:22. Xue Wuhan quickly informed Su Zilong and the others to retreat and not get close to Lion Gorge. Su Zilong received the order while running, but it was too late. Now that he was 200 li away from Lion Gorge, and he was exhausted, it was impossible for him to escape. Recover on the spot. Fight to the death. Su Zilong roared. His face was red, and he was ready to die. The 4 border army experts sat cross-legged, swallowed god pills, and quickly recovered their spirit essence. However, the supreme god killer had already reached Lion Gorge, and his divine sense covered 500 li, locking the 4 border army experts. The border army was nearby, so Xue Wuhan and Xue Wu must be nearby. Number 16 smiled evilly and looked around, but did not find Yi Qinghan and the others, and began to rush to the other side of Lion Gorge. Roar! The Life Reaper in Number 16's hand shook, and the 2 sides of the gorge reverberated, and a long roar echoed. The sound was extremely ear-piercing. Xue Wuhan's face changed, and he was only 200 li away from Su Zilong, so his divine sense could naturally find them. He did not expect Su Zilong and the others to give up on escaping. The 4 border army experts would definitely die in front of a supreme god. They were all his trusted subordinates, and they had been through life and death together. Yi Qinghan pressed his hand down on Shui Wuhan and sent a hoarse voice transmission. If we go out now, we'll just be throwing our lives away. There's no way the 7 of us can survive against an overgod. But Shui Wuhan clenched his fists and was very angry. No buts, we can't save them now, and if we go out now, we will be adding 3 more lives. Yi Qinghan immediately interrupted Shui Wuhan's words. At this time, Su Zilong and the other 3 joined forces to fight number 16, and they were fighting with their lives on the line. The spear on their back shook, and the wind poured out, blowing the gravel, but they were sent flying in an instant. Although the injuries were not serious, it could be seen that the gap between a supreme god and a giant god was too big. A border army expert at the peak of the giant god level, even with the 4 of them working together, could not withstand a single blow from a supreme god. Boom, boom, boom. The 4 of them retreated, and the rocks under their feet were crushed. Xiao, xiao, xiao. The spear tip shook, and the 4's movements were uniform, and they all attacked, not leaving any room for maneuver. Only this way could they buy more time. Shui Wuhan glared at Yi Qinghan furiously. He wanted to rush out a few times, but was stopped by Yi Qinghan. Let's go. You can still avenge them, but if we go out now. Yi Wuhan's soul attack, Shui Wuhan's soul, and die Shui Wuhan's. Yi Qinghan continued to carry Shui Wu on his back. He dragged Shui Wuhan along the canyon and left the place. His speed was not fast, but it was stable enough. He did not expose his whereabouts. Gradually, Yi Qinghan, Shui Wuhan and the other 2 were about 300 miles away from Line Gorge. They were about 500 miles away from Line Gorge. 200 or 300 miles away from Line Gorge, they would be able to fly freely. Right now, number 16's life-reaping saber was as fast as lightning. The overgod weapon sliced apart a spear and killed a realm soldier. After the death of a border soldier, number 16 became even more powerful. His divine power froze half of the sky in front of him. Su Zilong and the other 2 resisted with all their might, but they were still forced to retreat. Boom! Number 16 used his strength and sent the 3 of them flying. Following this, his 3 sabers struck the 3 of them, suppressing Su Zilong and the others to the ground. Where are Shui Wuhan, Shui Wu, and that saboteur? Tell me and I'll spare your lives. Number 16 looked down at the 3 of them and said coldly, If you want to kill me, then kill me. If you frown, then you are not a border army soldier. Su Zilong coughed up blood and fell to the ground. He glared at number 16 and looked at death calmly. I'll satisfy you. Boom. Whoosh. Su Zilong's head was cut off with a single slash, and his soul was shattered. Whoosh. The remaining 2 border army soldiers actually self-destructed in an instant. The shockwave shattered space and crashed into the Line Gorge. The self-destruction of the soul was equivalent to completely giving up on reincarnation. This kind of death was giving up on the path of retreat. Boom. Caught off guard, number 16 was directly sent flying. The self-destruction of a border army soldier was naturally powerful. Moreover, 2 border army soldiers gave up their lives at the same time. The shockwave rushed into the sky, shocking Shui Wuhan and Shui Wu who were far away. Yi Qinghan was used to seeing people who died in battle or even self-destructed for their belief. He had also seen people who were more tragic than the self-destruction of the border army soldiers. He admired these border army soldiers, but he did not react because they were not his people. At this time, Yi Qinghan took the 2 of them to escape to the northwest city. However, they did not enter the city. Instead, they took a detour to the first city in the border army's territory. Xiling and Shui Wuhan and his sister were not in a good mood. They did not speak along the way. Yi Qinghan followed not far behind. The moment they crossed the northwest city's territory, everything changed. Xue Wuhan clenched his iron fist and roared. He punched through an ice rock. At this time, a large group of people galloped from afar. There were more than 3,000 of them. They were all border army soldiers. The leader of the army was not inferior to Supreme God. He should be the border army's captain. Shua. The captain took the lead and rode an eagle to appear in front of the three. The captain of the Xiling army, Dong Menxian, came late. Please forgive me, Prince. The captain of the Xiling army, Dong Menxian, knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Get up, take people with me to take revenge." Zilong and the others were completely annihilated and self-destructed. I want hell to pay the price. A great emissary will definitely not be able to extinguish my anger. I want to uproot all of hell's branches in the northwest city. Xue Wuhan roared. Prince, the border army is not allowed to enter the eastern region of the northwest city unless there is a major event in the realm. This is the Supreme Realm Master's order. Please reconsider. Dong Menxian reminded in a deep voice. Xue Wuhan's breath stagnated. His blood was somewhat out of control. He was so angry that he spat out blood. Pooh! Xue Wuhan was staunch. The border army guarded the snow country and the god realm. They were all heroes. To die in the hands of the realm without being able to take revenge was simply a great humiliation. Come with me to the Line Gorge and bring back the corpses of Zilong and the others. After a long time, Xue Wuhan roared. His eyes were red. He had no choice but to give up on revenge. Soon, Xing Jun followed the main army. When he learned that Su Zilong and the others had all died in battle, he immediately roared. His face twisted in regret. Prince and Princess, please stay here. The three captains follow me to the Line Gorge and bring back the corpses of the 4 soldiers. Dong Menxian's eyes flashed with a cold light. He was very dissatisfied with the way the assassins had killed the border army. This matter must be reported to the governor of the border army. Hell would definitely pay the price. Soon, Dong Menxian rushed to the northwest city with the 4 captains. As a prince, Xue Wuhan was ranked above Dong Menxian. However, in the army, he was still a captain while Dong Menxian was a captain. Now that Dong Menxian had given the order, he had no choice but to stay and wait. Yi Qinghan did not speak. He stood beside Xue Wu, but Dong Menxian and the border army did not notice him. Chapter 12:23. Half a day later, Dong Menxian brought back 2 broken bodies. Their flesh and blood had been turned into powder by the impact of the qi, leaving only their skeletons. The 3,000 realm army soldiers were silent. This group of people had been fighting at the border for so many years. They had not died in the hands of outsiders, but they had died in the realm. It was inevitable that they felt sad. Xue Wuhan was even more furious. The flames in his eyes were about to spurt out. Prince Wuhan, from now on, leave this matter to me. Your task is to quickly return to your post. At this time, Dong Menxian was neither servile nor overbearing. He said in a deep voice, "Yes, Sergeant Commander." There was a difference in seniority in the army. Even a prince had to bow. At this moment, Xue Wuhan had no choice but to endure. Who is this person? He can't enter the realm army camp. You can arrange for him to be in Xiling City. At this time, Dong Menxian finally saw Yi Qinghan and said firmly, "General Dongmen, it's all thanks to him. Otherwise, I would have been killed. He is the disciple of the city lord of Yunzhong City. I went to Yunzhong City and took the initiative to pull him into the realm army. I can guarantee his character. You can test his strength." Xue Wuhan immediately explained. "I can also guarantee that there is absolutely no problem with Daoist Xue Xian's character." Xue Wu followed. Dong Menxian did not look at the 2 princes and princess. He stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. The supreme power shrouded him, as if he wanted to see through Yi Qinghan's soul. "What is your name?" Dongmen Xian asked coldly. "General, I am Zhuofeng." Yi Qinghan bowed slightly. He was neither servile nor overbearing. His voice was low. "Do you know what the Realm Army is?" Dongmen Xian asked. "I know. The army that guards the world. 1 in 10,000. Once you enter the Realm Army, there is only glory and death." Yi Qinghan calmly replied. "Since you know, I will allow you to enter the military camp to take the test. If you win 18 ordinary soldiers in a row, I will allow you to become a member of the border army." Dongmen Xian waved his hand, and the army moved neatly towards the border. Yi Qinghan looked at Xue Wu and Xue Wuhan and found that their mounts were snow beast horses, and their grades were very high. Each of them had one. It seemed that this army's level in the border army was not low. The snow beast horse was the size of an ordinary horse's fart. It was snow-white in color and excelled in speed. It was 50% faster than a human of the same level. Moreover, it had great endurance. It was a powerful weapon in battle. "Zhuofeng, this place is still very far from the military camp. Xue Wu is relatively light. If you and Xue Wu ride one horse, it won't affect your speed." Xue Wuhan trusted Yi Qinghan more and directly let him and Xue Wu ride on the same snow beast horse. Xue Wu naturally wouldn't refuse. She lowered her head and peeped at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan was expressionless. He jumped behind Xue Wu and reached out to hold the reins, pulling Xue Wu into his arms. Many border army soldiers looked at Yi Qinghan enviously. Not everyone could do such a cheap thing. "Let's go." Dongmen Xian took the lead, riding the most powerful snow beast horse leader to the west. Boom, boom, boom. 10,000 horses galloped, sand and stones flew, and the earth rumbled. Yi Qinghan followed closely behind Xue Wuhan. 3,000 border army soldiers galloped. Even if it was 300,000 ordinary soldiers, they wouldn't be able to withstand their wave of attack. They galloped all the way, passing dozens of large cities. It took them a day and a night to rush to the endless blood-red Gobi Desert. The cold air was even colder than the outside world. It was obvious that this was a large battlefield in ancient times. After so many years, the blood had not dried up. The pungent smell of blood rushed into the body from the nostrils and pores. Along with the baleful aura, it affected the mind of the strong. Border army soldiers would usually retire after 30,000 years. Otherwise, they would go crazy and become deranged. Even if the border army retired, the after-effects would be very obvious. But many people knew that the border army was dangerous, but they still wanted to go in. Because the border army could be conferred an official title and be inherited forever, and their descendants could enjoy it. In any world, after the border army retired, their status would be very high. Usually, even the officials with a higher title would be on equal footing with the retired border army soldiers. After passing through this blood-red Gobi Desert, a vast plain appeared in front of them. It was endless, and the dense white fog was so thick that one couldn't even see their 5 fingers. There were a total of 9 worlds in the 9 worlds. Not every world had a world barrier as a natural defense. For example, the Snow Country, the Divine World and the Ultimate Martial World had a world barrier as a defense. However, this place was a vast plain with heavy cold air. It was not suitable for humans to live in. However, some people would take the risk and enter the other world to kill the other side's people. Plunder, plunder! The women of Snow Country's Divine World would be sold for a high price in Ultimate Martial World. As the saying goes, the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. A slave of a woman of Snow Country's Divine World, as long as her appearance was of the highest quality, could be sold for a piece of profound level divine stone. And the women of Ultimate Martial World, sold to Snow Country's Divine World, the price was the same. Some rich and powerful people liked this kind of eccentricity. They always wanted to play with the women of the outside world or snatch the treasures of the outside world. What they wanted was to enjoy the uniqueness of the soul. Once the border army soldiers were caught by the other side, their fate was extremely miserable. They would be slaves forever, sold to the other side, and become the plaything of the other side's rich and powerful women. Their life would be worse than death, their yang qi would be devoured, and they would die tragically outside the world. The huge mountain forest formed a fortification. There were also 7,000 border army soldiers stationed here, forming a 10,000-strong army. Dongmen Xian was the great general here. Their mission was to guard this place, and in the future they would kill or capture strong enemies. Occasionally, they would take the risk to rush into the ultimate martial world, plunder resources, and snatch women. Arriving at the camp, Dongmen Xian looked coldly at Yi Qinghan and said firmly, "Zuofeng, I'll give you 2 missions. If you complete them, stay here. If you can't, leave immediately." "General, please speak." Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said, "The first mission, in this 10,000 border army, other than the princess, you can choose anyone you want. You can win 18 soldiers. The second mission, follow a group of people into the other side's ultimate martial world and capture 2 women for me." Dongmen Xian said indifferently. Yi Qinghan frowned. Capturing women was something that went against his conscience. Although he didn't think that he was a good person, he wouldn't go to the extent of bullying women. He could kill women and even exterminate their entire family. But to capture women for others to enjoy and humiliate, he couldn't do it. "What? Can't do it? If you can't do it, then leave. The border army doesn't raise useless people," Dongmen Xian said coldly. Yi Qinghan jumped off his horse and said indifferently, "Please enlighten me. Zuofeng is here to challenge, anyone can accept the challenge." "Ha ha, what an arrogant brat. He actually dares to challenge us." The army laughed wildly. They were all veterans of hundreds of battles and were top experts in the same realm. Their fighting experience was definitely much stronger than those young people who had no fighting experience in the outside world. Whoever wins against him will be rewarded with a woman from the ultimate martial world. Dongmen Xian glanced at everyone and said coldly, "I'll do it." Xiao, a burly man, rushed out from the crowd. He held a heavy hammer in his hand and waved it around. It was quite powerful. "Haha, it's Big Fat Hammer. This guy likes the women from the ultimate martial world the most." I knew that he couldn't help it. Everyone laughed wildly and retreated 300 meters, quietly watching the show. Boom! Big Fat Hammer held a sledgehammer and smashed towards Yi Qinghan. The sledgehammer caused the sky to distort, and the heaven and earth rumbled non-stop. Baleful chi soared into the sky. The sledgehammer shadows blocked all of Yi Qinghan's escape routes, forcing him to fight head-on. Yi Qinghan's toes crossed. His eyes were like torches as he moved forward and rushed towards the right side of the opponent. Boom! Yi Qinghan's left hand went to meet the sledgehammer, while his right hand grabbed the opponent's hand. Bang! Gotcha! Yi Qinghan's speed was extremely fast. With a shoulder throw, he threw Big Fat Hammer to the ground. It was like an ordinary person fighting, but it was more barbaric and violent. Bang! Yi Qinghan crushed the mountain rocks with one foot and kicked Big Fat Hammer, who fell to the ground. Then, he punched his waist. "Ah!" Big Fat Hammer screamed. The sledgehammer flew out of his hand and his body flew hundreds of meters away. Yi Qinghan retracted his fist and calmly waited for the Second Realm army to appear. Everyone was dumbstruck. They didn't expect Big Fat Hammer to be so easily dealt with. Was this a competition between realm armies? Chapter 12:24. Yi Qinghan took a few steps back and stood proudly among the heroes of the realm army. With his hands behind his back, he looked at the experts of the realm army indifferently. The corner of Dong Menxian's eyes twitched as he looked at the one-sided battle. This was the first time he had seen such a battle. The dignified realm army did not use any secret techniques, and was instead defeated by the most simple violence. Centurion of the 10th Squad, Ling Xiao, you go. Dong Menxian looked at the realm army and found Ling Xiao, who had a very strong physical body and excellent skills, and directly let him fight. Ling Xiao looked incomparably strong. His entire body was filled with explosive power. He was more than 2 meters tall, taller than Yi Qinghan. Kid, your battle ends here. Ling Xiao's voice was like thunder. He crushed the mountain rocks with one foot and punched towards Yi Qinghan with a powerful fist, causing flames to appear in the air. Crack, crack, crack. Yi Qinghan did not say a word. He clenched his iron fist and twisted his waist. He stood up from the ground and punched out from his heart. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A fist broke through space and time, bringing along flames that burned the void. The iron fist directly hit Ling Xiao's fist. Boom, bang. Crack, 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 crack. Puff, ah. Ling Xiao's right arm broke, the bones pierced out, and his body smashed backwards like a cannonball. The two of them were like adults fighting against a baby. Boom. Ling Xiao smashed into the group of realm army. More than 10 people joined hands to catch him, but they were sent flying by the aftermath, and all fell to the ground. Hiss hiss, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This physical body was too abnormal. He had heavily injured Ling Xiao with one punch, but he did not even take half a step back. Xue Wu and Xue Wuhan's eyes were wide open. They did not expect Yi Qinghan to be an expert of 3 elements, and a freak of physical body. Dong Menxian was also shocked. This physical body was not just abnormal, it was simply abnormal. Xue Wuhan looked at Dong Menxian, the corner of his mouth twitching, and suggested in a low voice, "His strength should be enough to pass. Let's proceed to the second test?" Alright, it just so happens that there is a team heading to the ultimate martial realm today. There are a total of 10 people, and each of them has their own goals. If they can't complete the mission, they will be eliminated. Dong Menxian looked at Yi Qinghan and pretended to be deep as he said, "Your mission is to deal with 2 women from the ultimate martial realm." Yi Qinghan was silent for a moment, then nodded. Regardless of whether it was the ultimate martial world or the Snow Empire's divine world, they would never treat them as humans. Otherwise, they would not have massacred the entire Great Wasteland domain. However, Yi Qinghan didn't think so. Humans, after all, were humans. Because of their intelligence, because of their souls, he could kill the women of the ultimate martial realm, but he wouldn't humiliate her because of that. However, at this moment, he had no choice but to do so. I will be in the same team as Zhuofeng. Today, I will also make a trip to the ultimate martial realm. Xue Wuhan said firmly. No. This is an order. Dong Menxian rejected Xue Wuhan's proposal without hesitation. I haven't been to the ultimate martial realm until now. Since Zhuofeng is my bodyguard, I will go and take a look. Xue Wuhan said indifferently, as if he didn't care about the dangers of the ultimate martial realm. However, Dong Menxian didn't have any room for discussion. He said coldly, "The power systems of the 2 realms are different. Once exposed, none of you will be able to return. Most importantly, you have the royal bloodline. If you are caught, the Snow Empire's imperial court will bear an unerasable shame." It's okay. I believe in Zhuofeng. With him here, I don't need to do anything. Xue Wuhan immediately explained. I want to go too. Brother Zhuofeng's body is so strong. He will protect us. Xue Wu even changed the way she addressed Yi Qinghan. She was full of admiration for him. Yi Qinghan frowned. If he brought a woman with him, it would be hard to explain if something happened. In the future, it would be difficult to move an inch in the Snow Empire's divine world. However, Yi Qinghan didn't say anything. Dong Menxian probably wouldn't let the prince and princess with noble bloodline enter the enemy's world. He couldn't bear the responsibility. Xue Wuhan, I order you in the name of a sergeant major. Don't mess around. If you go, Princess Xue Wu will also go. Are you trying to kill me? Dong Menxian angrily reprimanded. Soldiers always had a forthright and domineering aura. Although Dong Menxian wasn't a sergeant major, his status was too far away from Xue Wuhan. Xue Wuhan couldn't say anything. General Dongmen, I really want to go to the ultimate martial realm. I have mentioned it to you a few times before, but I was rejected by you. This is the last time I mention it, and I have to go. As for Xue Wu, you can't go. Zuofeng and I will go. If there is a problem, we can take care of each other. You will only cause trouble for us, Xue Wuhan said overbearingly. Xue Wu's eyes that were filled with spiritual energy stared at Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan with a trace of mist. The corner of her mouth curled, as if she wouldn't give up until she achieved her goal. Yi Qinghan stood with his arms crossed. He didn't look at Xue Wu and didn't want to participate in this matter. In the end, Dong Menxian had no choice but to agree to Xue Wuhan going to the ultimate martial realm. However, he strongly opposed Xue Wu going to the ultimate martial realm. After all, once Xue Wu was captured, it wouldn't be a humiliating matter. It was very likely that it would cause a war between the two worlds. Xue Wuhan also didn't agree with Xue Wu crossing the boundary. However, Xue Wu held on to Yi Qinghan tightly. If he didn't bring her, no one would be able to go. If Zuofeng brings you over, this general will allow you to go. When Dong Menxian saw that Xue Wu's will was so strong, he gave the job of offending people to Yi Qinghan. It was a good opportunity to test whether Yi Qinghan was qualified to become a centurion of the border army. Big brother Zuofeng, Xue Wu acted coquettishly and swayed her clothes. She pouted and looked at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan slapped Xue Wu's hand away and said coldly, "Your cultivation is too weak. I won't bring you." Dong Menxian and Xue Wuhan didn't think that Yi Qinghan would be so unsympathetic to the fairer sex. He didn't understand the ways of the world and actually didn't give Xue Wu any face. Xue Wu had never been humiliated like this before. If it was someone else, she would have already chopped them with a knife. However, the one who said this was Yi Qinghan, the idol in her heart. How could she dare to act recklessly? You. For the first time, Xue Wu felt that she was very weak. Tears fell directly. Bringing you there is equivalent to courting death. I won't do anything that I'm not sure of. I implore the princess to consider the overall situation. Otherwise, not only will you kill yourself, you will also kill us. Seeing Xue Wu crying, Yi Qinghan's attitude finally softened and he said with a bitter smile, "My cultivation, is it really that bad? I'm an existence that can be compared to a centurion." Xue Wu defended herself very seriously. The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth raised. He sneered and said indifferently, "They treat you as a child and a princess. Everyone is just giving in to you. Do you really take it seriously? What's more, going to the ultimate martial realm not only requires strength, but also intelligence." Xue Wu suddenly went crazy. She pointed at Yi Qinghan and said with a trembling voice, "Not only did you say that my strength is not good, you also said that my intelligence is low. You don't think that just because I like you, you can bully me." Xue Wu was confused by anger. She spoke without restraint and no longer cared. Cough cough. Xue Wuhan coughed and reminded Xue Wu to pay attention to her words. Only then did Xue Wu remember and quickly shut her mouth. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, "Do you see? Once you are humiliated, you will expose your true heart. This time, you only lost face. In the ultimate martial realm, you will lose your dignity and life." Chapter 12:25. Yi Qinghan coldly rejected Xue Wu's request. If not for the fact that he didn't want to offend Xue Wuhan, He wouldn't even bring Xue Wuhan along. Xue Wu was embarrassed by Yi Qinghan's words. She lowered her head and didn't say a word. Dong Menxian saw that Yi Qinghan was so straightforward that he didn't even give face to the princess. He admired him and didn't want the princess to make things difficult for him, so he said, "Let's go, be careful." Yi Qinghan turned and left indifferently, but just as he took a step, Dong Menxian transmitted his voice, "Zuofeng, don't let the prince come out. Even if you can't complete the mission, I won't blame you, but if you dare to bring the prince into danger, I'll kill you when you return." Yi Qinghan secretly returned a gesture, then left with Xue Wuhan. He didn't choose to move with the other teams. The two of them approached the west along the vast mountain range. It was easy to sneak through this huge mountain range, as long as their luck wasn't too bad and they didn't encounter the enemy's border army. However, battles could happen at any time in the ultimate martial realm. Once their identities were exposed, even 10 lives wouldn't be enough to lose. Yi Qinghan's divine sense was powerful enough, even more terrifying than the supreme god. He avoided the enemy's border army from 500 miles away, went around the border mountain, dodged the powerful fierce beasts, and appeared in a remote mountain village in the ultimate martial realm. It doesn't seem to be particularly dangerous. The ultimate martial realm's border management is too lax. Xue Wuhan didn't know the truth, and thought that the ultimate martial realm's border army was too lax, so he said self-righteously. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and didn't explain anything. Seeing that there were only a few old people and children in the remote mountain village, he directly left. The northeast of the ultimate martial realm, which was the northwest of the Snow Country's divine realm, was the mountain range with the most abundant resources in the ultimate martial realm. It was called the Ultimate Martial Mountain, and the fierce beasts there were extremely powerful and vicious. Even the experts of the ultimate martial realm could rarely bring out powerful resources from there. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan coincidentally arrived at the ultimate martial mountain. The vast ultimate martial mountain had no end in sight. Endless white fog covered the sky, and occasionally, unknown birds would soar into the sky, grabbing powerful beasts and eating them alive. "Shall we go in and take a look?" Xue Wuhan was a person who was unwilling to be left alone. He liked to take risks. Even though he knew that there were dangers in the depths, he still wanted to go in and take a look. Maybe he could find his own opportunity. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan had similar temperaments. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed as he rushed in with Xue Wuhan. Screech! A mournful howl reverberated through the mountain range, spreading for thousands of miles and thousands of ravines. It circulated back and forth before dissipating into nothing. Although there were few people in the area, there were plenty of elite kings who ventured deep into the area to train. If they found precious treasures that could help a giant god become a paramount god, or a new paramount god become a peak paramount god, it was a perfect place for advancement. However, those who dared to enter the ultimate martial mountain were at least peak giant gods. Most of them were giant gods or paramount gods. This place was their hope of advancement. There were spirit herbs everywhere, and their grades were not low. Yi Qinghan only secretly took some divine herbs, and did not touch the ordinary ones. Xue Wuhan trusted Yi Qinghan very much, so he did not pay attention to him. His heart was full of joy. This was his first time out of the realm, so his gaze was fixed on this novel world. Yi Qinghan's divine sense swept across the mountain range and found many powerful creatures. Most of them were giant gods, but there were also some low-level creatures. They did not have much spirit chi, so the powerful creatures would not eat them. That was why they had a chance to survive. The two shuttled back and forth, avoiding powerful creatures as they searched for precious treasures. The two searched for a few hours, and Yi Qinghan finally found a powerful creature more than 1,000 li away. It was guarding a precious divine medicine, similar to the star divine grass. Its leaves emitted star splendor, and a dense star force filled the surroundings. This was a divine medicine unique to the ultimate martial world, called the seven-leaf star. The guardian of the seven-leaf star was a giant god-limit creature, a star beast. It ate starlight and moonlight as its food. The seven-leaf star could gather starlight and moonlight, so it was the star beast's favorite. Only the seven-leaf star could help it become a paramount god. Yi Qinghan retracted his divine sense. Otherwise, it would tire his soul out. He silently brought Shui Wuhan closer to the seven-leaf star. Shui Wuhan did not have a destination of his own, so he followed Yi Qinghan blindly. He was in a very good mood. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The two were less than 2 meters away from each other. They bent over and shuttled through the forest. After several hundred miles, they arrived at an elegant valley. There was a decent waterfall in the valley, and below it was an unfathomably deep pool. It was surrounded by dense forests, and one would not be able to find it without entering. "Let's rest for a while before continuing," Shui Wuhan suggested. Yi Qinghan nodded and walked over to the pool. He stretched out his hand to summon the water to cleanse his face and wash away his fatigue. However, as soon as he touched the water, his expression changed and he looked up at the cliff behind the waterfall. This water has a thick spirituality. It smells like spirit water milk. Shui Wuhan was very knowledgeable, and the moment the tip of his tongue touched the water, he felt something strange. He was immediately overjoyed. "Let's go and see if there is a cave behind the waterfall. If there isn't, there must be something good at the top of the mountain," Yi Qinghan whispered. Shui Wuhan followed Yi Qinghan over the waterfall and found that there was indeed a big cave behind. There was not a single bit of light inside. Swish! Yi Qinghan mobilized the origin of water, diverting the waterfall's trajectory. The entire cave appeared under the sunlight. The interior of the cave was filled with mountain rock. The cave was rugged, and there was more than one passageway. "I have a supreme-grade luminous pearl." Shui Wuhan reached out and took out a luminous pearl the size of a fist. It radiated light in all directions, illuminating the dark cave. The two entered the mountain range. The waterfall lost its traction and covered the cave once again. There were more than 10 passageways in the cave, but there was only one passageway that could accommodate a person. The two followed the passageway deep into the cave. The luminous pearl illuminated the depth. This passageway did not seem natural, but man-made. There were some ancient patterns on both sides of the walls. Yi Qinghan looked at the patterns. His eyes were filled with icy flames. Fortunately, Shui Wuhan did not notice it. But not long after the two entered the cave, another group of people appeared in the valley. They were dressed in the same manner. There were 8 of them, and they were all peak giant god experts. There were 3 elders and 5 youths. The group arrived at the pool and washed the dust off their faces. They also discovered that there was something special in the water. They did not know what it was, but they knew that it was a treasure. "There is a treasure behind the waterfall," the leading elder said firmly. "Master, look. There are footprints here. The watermark has yet to dry. Someone entered the cave ahead of us." A young woman was attentive and discovered the watermark on the mountain rock. Chapter 12:26. The 8 people in the valley immediately became alert. The old man in the lead stared deep into the valley and pondered for a moment. He waved his hand and signaled for everyone to retreat until they reached the entrance of the valley. "The treasure here should be of the highest quality. Let's wait here for them to attack. If they are not supreme gods, we will kill them and take it." The old man was ruthless. No matter who was in the cave, they would kill them all. "Long Xiao, Chao Xing, you two are in charge of the left slope. Zuolang, Wang Feng, you two are in charge of the right slope. The rest of you will be in front. Aim your crossbows at the cave and listen to my command. Once I release an arrow, you will immediately shoot the crossbow indiscriminately into the cave." The old man quickly made arrangements. The 8 of them took up 8 positions, but the crossbows in their hands were all aimed at the cave entrance, ready to kill. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan did not know that the outside had been blocked. As they went deeper, they realized that the interior of the mountain was empty. However, the deeper they went, the denser the spiritual energy was. The life force was boundless, causing the spiritual essence in their bodies to move. Yi Qinghan's power of desolates almost jumped. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He did not know what was in the depths that could cause his suppression to loosen. Swish, Yi Qinghan's consciousness expanded downwards. He realized that the passageways were chaotic and complicated. The deeper they went, the stronger the life force. Slowly, they found the source of the life force. About 300 meters down, there was a huge karst cave. The top of the mountain was dripping with divine liquid, which gathered into a pool. It was as thick as milk and radiated divine splendor. It was at least 2 to 3 jin. Good treasure. Master, cover me. I will take the divine elixir first. The divine bird was restless. If not for Yi Qinghan's suppression, it would have rushed out. Yi Qinghan nodded secretly. This item could not be given to Xue Wuhan. At most, he would leave a little for others to take. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's large hand was wrapped around the night-luminescent pearl, blocking his line of sight. He slipped and pretended to fall. A protruding rock was forcefully torn off by him and fell into the depth. The divine bird took advantage of the darkness and fell with the rock. Bang! The rock crashed into the cave, causing a loud boom. Are you okay? Xue Wuhan immediately asked. Yi Qinghan stabilized himself and replied softly, I'm fine. This place is a little steep. Be careful. There was indeed a flight of stairs at the bottom, which Yi Qinghan easily concealed. Down below, the divine bird quickly arrived at the karst cave. It looked at the divine elixir and quickly put it into the universe ring, leaving only a tiny bit, not even 1/10 of it. It licked the surroundings clean. After taking away most of the treasures, the divine bird timidly rushed to a corner and pretended to be dead. It lay on the ground and did not emit any aura. At this time, even Yi Qinghan would not be able to detect it, let alone Xue Wuhan. The divine elixir of the divine elixir. Is. And there's so much of it. 2 tails. Xue Wuhan was very satisfied. Yi Qinghan looked at the divine elixir. He was certain that it was the divine elixir of life, which could instantly restore the body of a dying person. It could even change one's innate talents. It was a miraculous item that could only be chanced upon by chance. Its life force was so strong that it could instantly heal someone who was on the verge of death. Of course, it was only effective on peak paramount god. Beyond that level, it would be much weaker. Peak paramount gods, such as Wild Rock, were of no use at all. Your Highness, please take it, Yi Qinghan said calmly. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Of course I won't be stingy when I need it. Xue Wuhan's eyes flashed. Without any hesitation, he put the rest of the divine elixir of life into a jade bottle and then licked the rest. He was even more stingy than the divine bird. The divine bird was hiding behind a small rock, pretending to be dead. Seeing Xue Wuhan being so embarrassed, it couldn't help but twitch its mouth. Let's go. With that, Yi Qinghan clenched his fist and kicked the rock beneath his feet away. Rumbling sounds filled the cave as the divine bird flew over and hid in Yi Qinghan's arms. One man and one bird worked together seamlessly. Xue Wuhan didn't suspect that Yi Qinghan was trying to trick him. In fact, he was deeply grateful to Yi Qinghan for giving him such precious divine elixir. Who else could he trust if not someone like this? Who else could he trust if not this kind of person? Yi Qinghan walked in front as if nothing had happened and brought Xue Wuhan to the top of the waterfall. Just as they neared the waterfall, the water suddenly became restless. A sharp arrow pierced through the water curtain and shot into the cave. Whoosh! The divine arrow whistled through the air with a soul-stirring speed. It flew past Yi Qinghan's shoulder and arrived in front of Xue Wuhan. Boom! Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the divine arrow. His iron hand held the arrow firmly in place. It was less than half a finger's length away from Xue Wuhan's forehead. The arrow trembled and would have pierced through Xue Wuhan's head if it had gone any closer. It would have destroyed his body and destroyed his soul. Xue Wuhan was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. His limbs were weak and he almost went limp. This was the first time he was so close to death. Boom! In that instant, Yi Qinghan reacted quickly. He pushed Xue Wuhan down and rolled into the cave. Whoosh! Whoosh! Boom! 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 8 arrows pierced through the waterfall and into the cave. They almost brushed past Xue Wuhan and Yi Qinghan's bodies, missing them by only a few millimeters. It was a shocking sight. Bang! The mountain was shattered by the divine arrows. Gravel flew everywhere. Roar! Outside the valley, the leading elder rushed out and led 7 experts to attack the cave. Even the waterfall was cut off. Divine power shot out in all directions, hoping to catch Yi Qinghan and the others off guard. Kill him while he's down. Beat him to death. Boom! Boom! Bang! 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 The attacks of 8 peak giant gods drowned the entire mountain. The waterfall was shattered, and half the mountain was blasted into nothingness. Yi Qinghan dragged Xue Wuhan and fled into the depths of the cave. Boom! The mountain collapsed. Smoke and dust flew everywhere. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan were buried alive. The 8 experts stopped attacking. Lift this mountain. They are definitely not supreme gods. Otherwise, our attack just now would have been useless against them. The leading elder shouted. If they were not supreme gods, then it would be easy to deal with the giant gods. He had clearly discovered that there were only 2 of them. There were 8 of them, and one of them was a giant god at the limit. He was only half a step away from becoming a supreme god. Wouldn't it be easy to kill 2 giant gods? However, they did not know that their attacks just now were completely useless against Yi Qinghan. If not for the fact that he was afraid of exposing his identity, he could have killed one of them with a single slap. At that moment, Yi Qinghan was hiding in the cave below. They were pressed against the stone wall. The collapsed rocks did not hurt the 2 of them at all. Xue Wuhan was so scared that his face turned pale. His legs were trembling. Don't worry. We still have a chance to escape, Yi Qinghan comforted him in a low voice. How many of them are there? Xue Wuhan asked hoarsely. It was too rushed. I didn't see clearly. There are probably 7 or 8 of them. None of them are supreme gods. Otherwise they would not have ambushed us, Yi Qinghan quickly analyzed. Chapter 12:27. Boom boom boom. The mountain above was gradually blasted away, and soon, the attacks would reach the place where Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan were hiding. Yi Qinghan pulled Xue Wuhan close to the stone wall and breathed evenly. Relax your mind and keep calm. Prepare to break out. If you understand the power system of the ultimate martial world, then hold back one of them. If you don't, then leave it to me. Don't make a move. Yi Qinghan reminded. Can you do it alone? Xue Wuhan was very nervous at this moment. The other party was not alone, but a group of people with similar cultivation. It would be hard to win alone. Yi Qinghan was silent for a long time before he said hoarsely, I will do my best. At most, I will use my spiritual power. With that, Yi Qinghan clenched his fist. His divine sense swept upwards, preparing to kill the other party. That giant god, 7 peak, 1 extreme, 5 males and 3 females. Yi Qinghan quickly locked onto everyone's position and controlled their cultivation and strength. Hua hua hua. The mountain collapsed and the mountain was flattened. The waterfall formed a huge river that flowed out of the valley. 8 experts surrounded the 8 directions. 4 experts defended while the other 4 attacked. They continued to bombard downwards. 80 meters, 50 meters. The experts of the ultimate martial world quickly pushed downwards, getting closer and closer to Yi Qinghan. The rumbling sounds were endless, causing Xue Wuhan's heart to beat wildly. 30 meters, 20 meters. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan restrained their aura like mountain rocks. The other party had not discovered them yet, but Yi Qinghan still controlled the positions of the 8 experts. When they were 10 meters away, Yi Qinghan suddenly burst out, causing the mountain rocks to explode. He killed the expert in front of him with a punch. He somersaulted in the air and kicked an expert, smashing him into the mountain rocks. However, Xue Wuhan pierced through him from below. Xiao xiao xiao. The 4 defensive experts' divine crossbows flew everywhere, surrounding Yi Qinghan and Xue Wuhan. Shua. A long spear and crossbow appeared in Yi Qinghan's hand. In an instant, he attacked thousands of times, knocking away all the crossbow bolts. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan threw the spear out viciously and it pierced through the body of another expert. Terrifying divine power surged out without restraint and blasted the body into pieces. 1. The spear pierced into the star, trembled, and then returned to Yi Qinghan's hand. You're courting death. Whoosh! The limit giant god leader charged forward with his sword in hand. His sword technique was swift and fierce as he entangled Yi Qinghan and closed in on him. Kill that person first. The leader of the group shouted at the remaining people. Yi Qinghan's spear pierced through the void and collided with his opponent's sword. Shock waves rippled outwards, and the area within a 100-meter radius became a vacuum. Xue Wuhan was unable to contend against so many experts. He could only flee in the air, unable to escape the restraints of the other experts. Seeing that Xue Wuhan was unable to resist, Yi Qinghan began a powerful counterattack. His spear turned into a staff, which split the sky and descended from the sky, fiercely slamming into his opponent's sword. His strength was unparalleled, and the staff's power was enough to shatter heaven and earth. Boom! 1. The giant god leader's body nearly collapsed from the impact. His hands trembled, and the pain was unbearable. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Qinghan did not know exhaustion. Staff after staff, his physical strength erupted to the limit as he constantly bombarded his opponent. The limit giant god powerhouse forcefully blocked 100 staff attacks, but Yi Qinghan's strength seemed inexhaustible. At the 200th staff attack, the limit giant god powerhouse could not hold on any longer. His hands were covered in bloody veins, and it was a ghastly sight. At the 300th staff attack, the limit giant god elder began to retreat. Boom! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan swept out with his staff, colliding with his opponent's boundless ultimate martial god force. The sword was knocked out of his hand, and he was forced back several hundred steps. Die for me. Yi Qinghan was extremely powerful. He crushed the valley beneath his feet and punched the elder's head. His fist left behind a trail of flames that could seize a person's soul. It was as if he could kill a true paramount god with a single punch. The elder's face changed. He mobilized all the god force in his body to protect his arms and fists, then fiercely punched at Yi Qinghan. He was going to fight him head-on. Boom! When the old man and Yi Qinghan collided, the old man's expression changed. It was as if he had punched a red-hot iron. The heart-wrenching pain caused his face to distort, and he lost control of his body as he was flung far away. Bang! The elder was blasted into the side of the valley, coughing up blood. But at this moment, Xue Wuhan was forced into a desperate situation. Yi Qinghan could only give up on killing the elder and turn to rescue Xue Wuhan. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan swung his staff in a circle. In no time at all, he cleanly sent the people surrounding Xue Wuhan flying. Xue Wuhan's face was pale. He could only run, not attack. He was lucky to be able to survive being surrounded by so many people. Damn it! I want to kill them all. Xue Wuhan nearly lost control. He wanted to use his god force to freeze these people. Yi Qinghan immediately suppressed him and said in a low voice, "No. If you expose yourself, we won't be able to stop that ultimate powerhouse if he wants to escape. Once he escapes, we won't even be able to leave this place alive, let alone complete the mission." "Can you take it?" Shui Wuhan asked hoarsely. "I'll do my best." "I believe they won't take the initiative to attack again." Yi Qinghan stared at the 5 young powerhouses. The ultimate powerhouse of the giant god realm had also rushed out of the mountain. He stared at Yi Qinghan with a dark expression and a cold smile. Sure enough, the old man's eyes were filled with shock and fear. He couldn't imagine that Yi Qinghan could beat him so badly with just his physical strength. "You guys sure have guts. You don't even know who I am and you dare to attack me. Aren't you afraid of attacking a paramount god?" Yi Qinghan stared at the old man and said coldly, "You guys aren't from Extreme Dao City?" The old man frowned as he stared at Yi Qinghan and Shui Wuhan. He was a little suspicious as to why Shui Wuhan was only running away and not attacking. Part of Extreme Martial Mountain was within Extreme Dao City's territory. It was tens of millions of miles in radius. Therefore, most of the people here were from Extreme Dao City. Although Extreme Dao City was large, the true geniuses and powerful forces were known to all. The old man didn't recognize Yi Qinghan or Shui Wuhan. He began to suspect their origins. "Whether or not we are has nothing to do with you. You attacked us without any reason. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Yi Qinghan asked coldly. "Explanation? You killed 2 of my disciples. Shouldn't you also give me an explanation?" The old man scolded disdainfully. "You want to play an unreasonable game with me? Since that's the case, there's nothing left for us to talk about. If I can kill 2 of you, then I can kill all of you." Yi Qinghan's expression froze. His eyes emitted a cold light that threatened to strike at anyone's soul. "It seems like you don't know who I am. I am a deacon of the Ji Dao sect. This time, I only brought a few disciples of the sect to train. You killed 2 of my sect's disciples and you still want to escape?" The old man's lips curled up as he sneered disdainfully. Extreme Dao sect was the most powerful force in Extreme Dao City. It surpassed the official force of Extreme Dao City. Even the city lord had to look at the face of the sect master of Extreme Dao sect. Therefore, the disciples of Extreme Dao sect had a very high status. They had always been arrogant. If the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. Sure enough, the group of young disciples held their heads high and looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain. Yi Qinghan snorted. He wasn't interested in Extreme Dao sect, and he didn't know who they were. "Give me the treasures you obtained in the cave. This old man will spare your lives. Otherwise, my sect will definitely uproot your sect." The old man stretched out his hand and threatened. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.